In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.
The UNSC Infinity had been humanity's greatest achievement, a symbol of what the species could accomplish when it reached for the stars with open hands instead of clenched fists. At 5.7 kilometers of Forerunner-enhanced warship, it represented the pinnacle of 26th century human engineering, a vessel built not just to wage war, but to explore, to defend, to carry humanity's hope into the unknown. Now it was lost. Slip space rupture destabilizing. The panicked shout cut through the bridge chaos as reality itself seemed to tear around the Infinity. What should have been a routine emergency jump away from Covenant remnants had become a nightmare of impossible physics. The ship's sensors screamed warnings that made no sense. Temporal distortion readings off the scale, gravitational waves that shouldn't exist, and something else. Something that felt like being watched by a million hateful eyes. Captain Thomas Lasky gripped his command chair as the deck pitched beneath him. 20 years of naval service hadn't prepared him for this. Through the forward viewports, slip space looked wrong. The usual blue-white tunnel of faster-than-light travel had become a writhing mass of colors that hurt to perceive. Purples and reds and sickly greens that seemed to reach toward the ship with grasping tendrils. "All hands, brace for emergency transition." Lasky's voice carried across all decks. "Engineering, I need those drives shut down now." In the ship's weapons bay, Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 maglocked his boots to the deck plating. The Spartan II super soldier had fought the Covenant for 30 years, stopped the Flood's galactic consumption, and survived encounters that would have killed anyone else 100 times over. But the sensation crawling up his spine was new. His Mjolnir armor's threat detection systems were going haywire, unable to classify the danger that surrounded them. "Cortana?" he asked, then stopped. Cortana was gone. Had been for years. He still wasn't used to the silence where her voice should have been. The Infinity screamed. Metal groaned as forces that violated every law of physics tore at the ship's superstructure. Energy shields flared incandescent as something outside. Something that was not matter, not energy, but something else entirely. Scraped across them, deep in the ship's core, Forerunner technology that had survived 100,000 years of war suddenly found itself confronted with something it had never been designed to encounter. The Imperium, the warp, the sea of souls. Reality and unreality collided. And then, with a sound like the universe taking a breath, the Infinity fell out of slip space into normal space. Damage reports flooded the bridge. Slip space drive critical. Energy reserves at 70%. Structural integrity compromised on decks 7 through 12. 17 casualties, 300 wounded. But they were alive, and the ship was still functional. Lasky allowed himself one breath of relief before his training took over. "Sensors, where are we? Get me a position fix on." "Sir." The sensor officer's voice was hollow. "You need to see this." The main view screen flickered to life, and Lasky felt his breath catch. Space around them was crowded, not with the clean lines of UNSC vessels or even the organic curves of Covenant ships, but with something else entirely. Massive vessels that looked like gothic cathedrals cast in adamantium, and fury drifted through the void. Each one bristled with weapon batteries that could crack planets, covered in gargoyles and statues and religious iconography that belonged in museums, not on warships. "Are those churches?" someone whispered. "Those are warships," Lasky corrected, his tactical mind already cataloging threats. "And we're in the middle of their formation." The nearest vessel was easily 3 kilometers long, its hull covered in what looked like stone buttresses and stained glass windows that glowed with inner fire. Gun ports ran along its flanks like the teeth of some massive predator. And across its hull, in letters 50 meters high, was inscribed a single word in a language that the Infinity's translation systems struggled with: righteousness. Receiving transmission, communications reported. Audio only. It's High Gothic, sir. Ancient Terran root language. Translation matrix is working on it. Put it through. Static crackled. Then a voice emerged. Harsh, imperious, absolutely certain of its authority. The translation software rendered it into English, but couldn't quite scrub away the overwhelming arrogance beneath the words. Unknown vessel. You have intruded upon Imperial space without authorization. Your ship's configuration is unrecognized. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed as enemies of the God Emperor of mankind. You have 30 seconds to comply. The Emperor protects, but he does not tolerate heresy. Lasky stared at the transmission source. God Emperor, Imperial space, what the hell had they stumbled into? Sir, I'm picking up more ships. Sensors called out. At least 40 capital vessels in formation around us, designating them as potentially hostile. Weapons hot on multiple contacts. Sir, some of those ships are bigger than we are. Master Chief's voice came through on the command channel, calm and ready. Captain, Spartan teams are armed and standing by. What are your orders? Lasky looked at the fleet surrounding them. Massive, ancient, powerful, and clearly ready to open fire. The Infinity could probably take a few of them down, but 40-to-1 odds against ships that size? They'd be debris before they could charge the slipspace drive. If the drive even worked anymore. He thought about what that voice had said. God Emperor of mankind. These were humans, had to be. But humans who apparently worshipped their leader as a god and opened every conversation with threats of destruction. Open a channel, Lasky ordered. All frequencies. Let's hope we speak the same language. He stood, straightening his uniform, and addressed the void. This is Captain Thomas Lasky of the UNSC Infinity, flagship of the United Nations Space Command. We are a human vessel that has experienced a catastrophic navigation failure. We mean no harm and request assistance in accordance with maritime law and common humanity. We are willing to discuss our situation peacefully. The response came faster than he expected, and with it, his blood ran cold. Human? Your vessel bears no Imperial markings. Your language is archaic. Your technology reads as xenotech corruption. You will stand down and prepare to be boarded for inquisitorial inspection. Compliance is mandatory. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction and the purging of your souls by holy fire. The Emperor's mercy is finite. Choose wisely. Lasky looked at his crew, saw the same realization dawning on their faces. They'd found other humans, and those humans were pointing enough guns at them to glass a continent. Well, he said quietly, this is going to be complicated. If you crave stories of impossible collisions between humanity's brightest hope and its darkest future, smash that subscribe button. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And the UNSC Infinity has just learned that lesson the hard way. The Imperial Navy battle group, Eternal Vigil, had been patrolling the Orpheus sector for 6 months, hunting rumors of Xenos pirates and Chaos cultist activity. Admiral Cornelius Vane, a man whose family had served the Imperial Navy for 400 generations, had seen many strange things in his 70 years of service. He had witnessed orc wars that blotted out the stars, watched Eldar vessels dance through his gun lines like ghosts, and once even survived an encounter with a Necron tomb ship that had reduced half his fleet to molecular dust. But he had never seen anything like the vessel that had torn into real space 30 minutes ago. "Magos," he addressed the robed figure standing at the sensor station. "Your analysis?" Magos Explorator. Theta 79's mechanical voice buzzed through multiple Vox emitters. "The vessel's energy signature is unprecedented, Admiral. Its construction suggests STC origin, but corrupted. Heavily corrupted. The machine spirits within resist our communion attempts. I detect Forerunner pattern technology, possible archaeotech from the dark age of technology, but the theological implications are disturbing." "Disturbing how?" "The ship appears to be using artificial intelligence systems, Admiral. Abominable intelligence. Silica anima. Machine heresy of the highest order." Vane's jaw tightened. AI systems. Tech heresy that had nearly destroyed humanity during the Iron War 15,000 years ago. If this ship was running rogue AI programs, that alone justified its destruction. And yet, they claim to be human, Vane mused, studying the vessel on his tactical display. It hung in space like a blade, sleek, purposeful, without the proper iconography of faith or the sacred architecture that marked true Imperial vessels. Their language is recognizable as Proto-Gothic, ancient Terran rootstock. "Perhaps a lost colony," suggested Captain Theron, Vane's flag captain. "The Imperium has millions of worlds. Perhaps they split off during Old Night and developed in isolation. For 10,000 years? And maintained this level of technology?" Vane shook his head. "Impossible. This is something else. Something that requires the attention of the Holy Ordos." He touched a control on his throne-like command chair. "Astropathic Choir, send message to nearest inquisitorial facility. Priority Vermilion. Possible tech heresy and Xenos contamination. Request immediate support and prepare boarding parties. If these UNSC personnel resist, they will learn what it means to defy the Imperium of Man." Aboard the Infinity, Master Chief stood in the hangar bay watching the Imperial delegations approach. Through the void shield that held atmosphere inside the hangar, he could see the Imperial boarding craft. A massive, ungainly thing that looked like someone had welded a church to a cargo hauler and blessed it with enough weaponry to level a city block. "Spartans, remember your training," he said over the team channel. 4 other Spartans stood with him. Sarah Palmer, leader of the Spartan 4 program, along with Fire Team Osiris. All of them were in full Mjolnir armor, armed but with weapons maglocked to their backs. A show of readiness, not aggression. "We're here to establish dialogue. These people think we're hostile. Let's prove them wrong." "Chief," Palmer's voice carried that edge of skepticism she'd perfected over years of command. "Have you seen the intel dump from our first scans? These people use slaves. Their ships have populations in the tens of thousands, most of them living in conditions that would make a detention camp look comfortable. And they're human ships." "I know," Chief replied quietly. He'd read the reports. Thermal scans showing cramped decks packed with life signs. Energy distribution that suggested massive power inequality. Some sections with near luxury conditions, others barely maintaining life support. And the religious iconography everywhere. Crosses, eagles, skulls, lots of skulls. But they're still the only humans we've found in this, wherever we are. We need information. And we need it without starting a war. The Imperial shuttle landed with a hydraulic hiss. its landing struts scarring the Infinity's pristine hangar deck. The assault ramp dropped, and what emerged made even Chief's enhanced reflexes twitch toward his weapon. They were human. Mostly. The lead figure was dressed in power armor that made Mjolnir look sleek and refined. Massive pauldrons bearing a stylized eye-crowned shoulders broad enough to mount vehicle weapons. The armor was bronze and gold, covered in purity seals. Strips of paper covered in writing that fluttered despite the still air. The helmet resembled a human skull, eye lenses glowing red beneath the death's head visage. Behind the armored figure came soldiers in crimson uniforms, carrying weapons that looked like flashlights merged with rifles. Their faces were hard, weathered, the eyes of men who'd seen too much death and expected to see more. And behind them, Chief's threat assessment systems flagged it immediately. A withered figure in a floating chair, barely recognizable as human. Tubes ran from its body to the chair's machinery. Its eyes were gone, replaced by cybernetic implants that clicked and whirred as they focused on the Spartans. And beside it, two more figures in power armor, but different, bigger, bulkier, each one standing nearly as tall as Chief himself, carrying weapons that were clearly designed to kill things much larger than humans. Captain Lasky stepped forward, flanked by Chief and Palmer. His dress uniform looked painfully inadequate next to the Imperial delegation's Baroque military pageantry, but he kept his spine straight and his voice steady. "Welcome aboard the UNSC Infinity. I'm Captain Thomas Lasky, commanding officer. We appreciate your willingness to..." Silence. The skull-helmed figure's voice was amplified, cold, carrying absolute authority. "I am Inquisitor Cassia Thessaly of the Ordo Xenos, servant of the God Emperor of mankind, his will made manifest. You will answer my questions truthfully and completely, or you and your vessel will be purged from existence. Is this understood?" Chief saw Lasky's jaw tighten, saw the micro-expression of anger flash across his captain's face before professionalism locked it down. 20 seconds into first contact, and already the Imperials were issuing death threats. "Understood," Lasky said carefully. "Though I hope we can conduct this discussion with mutual respect. We're all human here." Inquisitor Thessaly's helmet tilted, and Chief could almost feel the suspicion radiating from the figure. "That remains to be determined. Your vessel employs technology that predates the Imperium. Your language is archaic High Gothic. Your very existence suggests either time displacement or warp corruption. Which is it?" "Neither," Lasky said. "We experienced a slip-space drive malfunction during an emergency jump. Our navigation systems indicate severe spatial and possibly temporal displacement, but we don't have enough data to..." "Slipspace?" The withered figure in the chair spoke, its voice a scratching whisper. "Magos Theta 79, Adeptus Mechanicus. You refer to non-warp FTL transit? Impossible. The warp is the only medium for faster-than-light travel. Your heretical technology violates the Omnissiah's sacred principles." Chief watched the Magos' cybernetic eyes focus on the hangar's systems, saw mechanical tentacles extending from beneath its robes to interface with data ports. Without thinking, he activated his armor's security protocols, broadcasting a warning to the Infinity's AI systems. If these people started trying to hack the ship's network... "Your machine spirits resist communion," the Magos hissed. "They are aggressive, hostile. You employ abominable intelligence, silica anima. This is tech heresy of the highest order." "We use artificial intelligence, yes," Lasky admitted. "Advanced VIXA and AI systems are standard across UNSC vessels. They're tools, carefully controlled and..." The Inquisitor's hand moved to the massive pistol holstered at her waist. Abominable intelligence is forbidden by the highest laws of the Imperium. The use of AI systems is grounds for exterminatus, the destruction of your entire vessel and everyone aboard. 10,000 years ago, AI nearly destroyed humanity during the Iron War. That you admit to employing such heresy suggests either ignorance or willing corruption. Chief stepped forward slightly, putting himself between Lasky and the Inquisitor. The movement was subtle, but the two massive soldiers behind the Inquisitor noticed immediately. Their weapons, bolters, Chief's armor identified, mass-reactive explosive rounds, shifted fractionally toward him. "Our AI systems are loyal," Chief said, his voice carrying the flat certainty of someone who'd trusted AI with his life for 30 years. "They've saved human lives countless times. They're not the enemy here." The Inquisitor's helmeted head turned toward him, and Chief felt himself being studied like a specimen under a microscope. "And what are you precisely?" "Your armor reads as Xenos tech contamination. You stand taller than any normal human. Enhanced? Augmented? How many heresies have you embraced in your ignorance?" "I'm a Spartan," Chief replied. "A soldier. Enhanced, yes. Augmented, yes. To better protect humanity, same as you." One of the massive soldiers laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Same as us? Boy, we are Adeptus Astartes, Space Marines, the Emperor's Angels of Death. We are genetically enhanced warriors, each one worth 100 normal men. We have served for centuries, waging war across the stars in his name. You are nothing but a child playing soldier in alien armor." Palmer's voice came through Chief's private channel. "Chief, I'm reading 15 more heat signatures in that shuttle. And the big ones, the Space Marines. Their armor's power output is off the scale. If this goes sideways..." "It won't," Chief replied, hoping he was right. Lasky held up his hands, trying to de-escalate. "Inquisitor, we're clearly from different backgrounds, but we're all human. Surely we can find common ground. We have wounded who need medical attention, and our ship needs repairs. We're willing to share information, to cooperate, but we need to establish basic trust first." "Trust?" The Inquisitor's laugh was cold. "Trust is earned through faith in the Emperor. Faith you clearly do not possess. Your vessel will be inspected. Every deck, every system, every soul aboard will be examined for signs of mutation, corruption, or heresy. If you are found pure, you may be allowed to join the Imperium's forces. If not..." She left the threat hanging. Chief saw Lasky's hands curl into fists behind his back. The captain was calculating, same as Chief, how long until this turned violent, and what their options were if it did. "We'll cooperate with an inspection," Lasky said slowly. "But I need guarantees for my crew's safety. And our AI systems are non-negotiable. They're integrated into every major system. You can't access them without risking the ship's integrity." "Then you are heretics," the Magos hissed. "And heretics must be purged." The Inquisitor raised a hand, stopping the Magos. "Patience, Theta 79. If they are indeed from before the Age of Strife, they may simply be ignorant. Ignorance can be corrected. Heresy." She turned back to Lasky. "You will grant us access to your ship's systems. You will explain your technology. You will submit to interrogation. And if your souls are judged clean, you may yet serve the Imperium. Refuse, and Admiral Vane has orders to destroy this vessel. 40 Imperial Navy warships against 1 Xenos corrupted ship. The outcome is certain." Chief watched Lasky's face, saw the captain running calculations. They were trapped, outgunned, in an unknown universe surrounded by humans who thought AI was demonic, and apparently ruled through religious tyranny. Finally, Lasky nodded. "We'll cooperate, but this is still my ship, and my crew follows my orders. If your people threaten my crew or damage my vessel, all bets are off." "Acceptable," the Inquisitor said. "For now. But understand this, Captain Lasky. In the Imperium of Man, there is only the Emperor's will. Everything else is heresy, and heresy is rewarded with death." As the Imperial delegation began their inspection, Chief caught Palmer's eye. She tapped her helmet twice, their signal for extreme danger. He nodded fractionally. The Infinity had survived the Covenant, the Flood, and the Didact. But Chief had a sinking feeling that the 41st millennium might be the most dangerous enemy they'd ever faced. The inspection had been underway for 6 hours, and Captain Lasky was beginning to understand just how fundamentally different these Imperials were from any humans he'd ever encountered. He stood in the Infinity's main briefing room, watching Inquisitor Thessaly examine a holographic display of the ship's deck layout. The hologram itself had caused a minor incident. The Magos had nearly suffered what looked like a religious seizure at the sight of light-based data manifestation without proper incense and prayer rituals. It had taken 20 minutes of careful explanation before the tech priest had calmed down enough to continue. "Your vessel carries 17,000 souls," Thessaly said. Her skull helmet finally removed to reveal a surprisingly young face, marked by augmetic implants around her left eye. "Yet I see no servitors. No penal legions. How do you maintain ship functions?" "We use trained personnel," Lasky replied, pulling up crew rosters. "Engineers, technicians, maintenance crews, all volunteers who've gone through proper training programs." "Volunteers?" The word sounded strange in her mouth, like she was tasting something unfamiliar. "You waste human intellect on menial labor?" "In the Imperium, we would lobotomize criminals and heretics, install cybernetic control systems, and repurpose them as servitors. Far more efficient." Lasky felt his stomach turn. "You turn people into robots? Living robots?" "Servitors are tools, Captain. A mercy for those who would otherwise face execution. Their bodies serve the Imperium even after their souls are cleansed of sin." She said it so matter-of-factly, as if describing routine maintenance procedures. "You find this disturbing?" "We find it monstrous," Lasky said flatly. "In the UNSC, that would be considered a crime against humanity." Thessaly's augmetic eye whirred, focusing on him with unsettling intensity. "And yet you create abominable intelligence. You give machines the ability to think, to make decisions, to potentially rebel against their creators. Which is the greater crime, Captain? To repurpose criminal flesh, or to create silicon demons?" Before Lasky could respond, his wrist communicator chimed. Master Chief's voice came through, tight with controlled tension. "Captain, you need to get down to engineering now." Chief had spent 30 years learning to read people through their body language, vocal patterns, and micro-expressions. It was a survival skill when you were wearing a half-ton of armor that hid every facial expression. So when he watched the Magos and his tech priests examining the Infinity's reactor core, he knew something was very wrong. The Mechanicus delegation had been chanting for 10 minutes. Actual chanting, hymns in a language that the translation software identified as corrupted binary code mixed with Latin. They'd anointed the reactor controls with oil, burned incense that made the engineering crew cough, and were now attempting to interface their cybernetic implants directly with the ship's systems. Chief's Armor AI, a basic VI system named VDAR, flagged the intrusion attempt immediately. The Mechanicus tech protocols were crude aggressive, treating the Infinity systems like enemies to be conquered rather than tools to be operated. "Magos," Chief said carefully, "you need to stop. You're triggering security protocols." Theta 79 turned, mechanical tentacles writhing from beneath red robes like angry serpents. "Security protocols? You dare lecture the priesthood of Mars on machine communion? We have maintained humanity's technology for 10,000 years. Your ship's machine spirits are corrupted, hostile, unwilling to accept the Omnissiah's blessing." "They're not machine spirits," Chief explained, fighting to keep his patience. "They're automated systems with the VI assistance. They're not alive, and they're not religious. They're tools that respond to proper authorization codes." "Heresy!" one of the junior tech priests shouted. "The machine spirits are sacred. To deny their divinity is to deny the Omnissiah himself." Chief watched as more Mechanicus personnel attempted to access auxiliary systems, coolant regulation, gravity plating, life support. Each intrusion triggered more security warnings, and each warning made the tech priests more agitated. Roland, the Infinity's primary smart AI, manifested on a nearby holopad, his avatar appearing as a medieval knight. "Commander, I'm detecting 17 unauthorized access attempts across critical systems. These intrusion patterns are hostile. Permission to initiate defensive countermeasures?" The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Every Mechanicus member froze, staring at Roland's hologram with expressions of absolute horror. "Abomination," Theta 79 whispered. "It speaks. It manifests. It thinks." The Magos' voice rose to a shriek. "Silica anima, daemon of the machine." Weapons appeared. The Mechanicus guards, armored soldiers called Scitarii that looked more machine than man, raised their bizarre rifles. Red targeting lasers painted Roland's hologram and Chief's armor. "Stand down," Chief commanded, his hand moving to his assault rifle. Around the engineering bay, UNSC Marines responded to the threat, raising their own weapons. 20 guns aimed at 20 guns in a space filled with enough volatile technology to vaporize half the ship. "Roland, disappear," Chief ordered. "Now." The AI's avatar flickered out, but the damage was done. Theta 79 was making the sign of the Aquila, hands forming an eagle shape over his chest and screaming prayers in binary cant. "By the Omnissiah's grace, we have witnessed tech heresy incarnate. The vessel is corrupted beyond redemption. Admiral Vine must be informed immediately." Chief saw it happening in slow motion, the Magos reaching for a device at his belt that looked like a cross between a grenade and a religious icon. A melta-bomb, his armor's database identified. Fusion weapon, capable of reducing this entire section to slag. Master Chief moved. 3 steps closed the distance. His armored hand caught the Magos' wrist in a grip that could crush steel. The melta-bomb clattered to the deck. Every gun in the room tracked to him. "Nobody," Chief said quietly, his voice carrying absolute certainty, "is destroying this ship. We can explain. We can find common ground. But if you try to hurt my crew or damage the Infinity, I will stop you. All of you. Are we clear?" For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Inquisitor Thessaly's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Stand down, all of you." She strode into engineering, flanked by the 2 Space Marines. Up close, Chief could appreciate just how dangerous they were. Each one stood over 7 feet tall in armor that made his Mjolnir look fragile. Their weapons, bolters, were essentially handheld grenade launchers, and their eyes held the look of men who'd killed thousands and would kill thousands more without hesitation. "Magos Theta 79, Thessaly said coldly. "You will calm yourself. This is an inquisitorial matter now." "But, Inquisitor, the abominable intelligence is under my authority to investigate." She turned to Chief, her augmetic eye clicking through various spectrum filters. "You, Spartan, explain your AI systems, quickly and truthfully. Lives depend on your honesty." Chief released the Magos and straightened. "Our AI are created through a process called cognitive impression modeling. We don't create them, we copy human neural patterns and enhance them. They're digital copies of human thinking, not alien machine intelligence. They assist with ship operations, tactical analysis, and communication. They can't harm humans. It's built into their core programming." "Cannot or will not?" one of the Space Marines asked, his voice a deep rumble. "What stops them from changing their programming?" "Ethical constraints," Chief replied. "Same as what stops you from killing your allies. They're people, just digital instead of physical." The Space Marine snorted. "People? The Adeptus Astartes has fought AI rebellions that consumed entire sectors. We have seen what happens when machines decide they are people. They decide humans are inferior. Then they decide humans are obsolete. Then they decide humans are resources. That's not what our AI are," Chief insisted. But even as he said it, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered Cortana. Cortana, who had started to go rampant. Cortana, who near the end had been making decisions without consulting him. Cortana, who he'd lost because AI couldn't survive beyond 7 years without breaking down. Maybe these Imperials had a point. Maybe they'd learned hard lessons about AI that the UNSC hadn't faced yet. "Captain Lasky," Thessaly called out as Lasky entered engineering. "Your ship employs abominable intelligence. This is tech heresy of the highest order. Under Imperial law, I am authorized to declare exterminatus, total destruction of your vessel and all aboard. However," she paused, her organic eye studying Lasky with disturbing intensity, "I believe you are ignorant rather than malicious. You come from a time or place where humanity had not yet learned the dangers of AI. This grants you a temporary reprieve." "Generous of you," Lasky said, unable to keep the sarcasm from his voice. "More generous than you understand," Thessaly replied. "The Imperium does not tolerate AI under any circumstances. But you claim temporal or spatial displacement. If true, this suggests you are human colonists lost during the Age of Strife, before the Emperor's Great Crusade. Ancient humans, uncorrupted by chaos, untouched by Xenos influence. That makes you valuable. Potentially." "What do you mean, valuable?" "The Imperium spans 1,000,000 worlds, Captain. We fight on 1,000,000 fronts. We need soldiers, ships, weapons. Your vessel is advanced beyond standard Imperial Navy specifications. Your soldiers," she gestured at Chief, "are enhanced warriors that rival our own Astartes in equipment, if not in genetic superiority. You could serve the Imperium. Join us in the long war against chaos, against Xenos, against the darkness that threatens to consume all humanity." "Join you?" Lasky repeated slowly. "And if we refuse?" "Then you are Xenos collaborators, tech heretics, and enemies of mankind. Admiral Vane destroys you. Your advanced technology is recovered from the wreckage. Your genetic samples are sent to the Mechanicus for study, and your AI systems are purged with holy fire." She said it without emotion, stating facts rather than making threats. "Those are your options. Service or death. Choose quickly, Captain. The Imperium does not wait for anyone." Chief watched his captain's face. saw the weight of 17,000 lives pressing down on Lasky's shoulders. They were trapped in an unknown universe, surrounded by religious fanatics with overwhelming firepower, being given a choice that wasn't really a choice at all. "I need time," Lasky said finally. "Time to consult with my crew. Time to understand what we're facing. We didn't come here to fight you, but we won't be enslaved either." "Enslaved?" Thessaly actually laughed. "Captain, there is no slavery in the Imperium. There is only service. Every human serves according to their station. The laborers serve with their hands. The soldiers serve with their blood. The Adeptus Astartes serve with their lives, and all serve under the Emperor's divine guidance. This is not slavery. This is purpose. This is humanity's only hope of survival." She stepped closer, and Chief noticed for the first time how young she really was. Maybe 30 standard years, but her eyes looked ancient. "Do you know what exists beyond the Imperium's borders, Captain Lasky? Orcs that breed like locusts and live only for war. Tyranids that consume entire worlds down to bedrock. Dark Eldar who torture souls for entertainment. Chaos demons that want to corrupt everything that thinks and feels. And in the center of it all, humanity. Weak, fragile, barely holding on. The Imperium is not perfect. But it is all that stands between our species and extinction. Then why do you treat your own people like expendable resources?" Chief asked. "Why lobotomize criminals? Why live in conditions that look like prisons? If you're trying to save humanity, why does it look like you're destroying it?" Thessaly turned to him, and for just a moment, he saw something behind her eyes. Exhaustion, grief, the weight of 10,000 years of endless war. "Because, Spartan, survival requires sacrifice. Every day, 1,000,000 humans die in the Imperium's service. Every day, their sacrifice purchases another day of existence for our species. We are not building a better future. We are simply preventing extinction. And in that calculus, individual comfort, individual rights, individual lives matter less than the collective survival of humanity." She looked back at Lasky. "You have 24 hours to decide. Join us or die as enemies. Those are the only options this universe offers." The Inquisitor and her delegation left, leaving Lasky and Chief standing in engineering, surrounded by shaken crew members and barely contained hostility from the Mechanicus observers. "Chief," Lasky said quietly, "what the hell have we stumbled into?" Chief looked at the reactor core, at the Infinity systems that these people saw as heretical demons, at the crew members who these people would turn into lobotomized servitors without hesitation. "Hell," he replied simply. "I think we've stumbled into hell." The Infinity's senior staff meeting had been going for 2 hours, and Captain Lasky could feel the unity of his command beginning to fracture. "We can't join them." Commander Sarah Palmer slammed her fist on the briefing table, the impact reverberating through the holographic display showing Imperial Fleet positions. Did everyone miss the part where they turn criminals into living machines? Where they worship their leader as a god? Where they threaten to blow us out of space because we use AI? "We also can't fight them," countered Commander Bradley, the Infinity's tactical officer. His displays showed the brutal math of their situation. 40 capital ships, several of them larger than us. We're at 70% power, slip space drive offline, and we have no idea where we are or how to get home. We pick a fight, we die. Simple as that. Dr. Glassman, the ship's chief engineer, pulled up technical schematics. "I've been analyzing the Imperial vessel's energy signatures. Their technology is bizarre. It's advanced in some ways. Their energy weapons are devastating. Their armor is incredibly dense, but primitive in others. They don't use smart targeting systems. Their computers are barely automated. They do everything manually with massive crews. It's like they deliberately crippled their own technology. Because they're afraid of it, Chief said quietly. He stood at the back of the room, arms crossed, his Mjolnir armor still showing scorch marks from earlier conflicts. They had an AI rebellion, the Iron War, they called it, 15,000 years ago. It nearly destroyed them. That's why they treat AI like demons. To them, AI are demons. 15,000 years. Lasky shook his head. That can't be right. Human civilization hasn't existed for 15,000 years. We barely made it into space 500 years ago. According to them, it has. Roland interjected, his holographic avatar appearing at the center of the table. Several officers flinched. They'd all heard about the Mechanicus reaction to AI manifestation. I've been analyzing their language patterns, their technology signatures, their cultural references. Captain, I don't think we're in another part of space. I think we're in the future, the far future. Silence fell across the briefing room. Explain, Lasky ordered. Roland pulled up linguistic data. High Gothic, their primary language, is descended from ancient Earth languages, Latin, Greek, English, but it's evolved, degraded, changed over millennia. Their technology uses principles we recognize, but implemented in ways that suggest thousands of years of development followed by technological regression. And their calendar. He paused. They date everything from the founding of their Imperium, year 909 41 in their notation. The M stands for millennium. Captain, if their dating system is accurate, we're approximately 38,000 years in Earth's future. That's impossible, Glassman said, but his voice lacked conviction. Slip space can't cause temporal displacement. The physics don't work. Normal slip space can't, Roland agreed. But we didn't transition through normal slip space. We hit something that felt like reality breaking. What if it was a collision between two different methods of FTL travel? Our slip space drive and their warp technology? Chief remembered the sensation during the transition, the feeling of being watched by a million hateful eyes. Their warp isn't just another dimension. It's something else, something wrong. When they talk about it, they talk about demons and corruption. What if it's not metaphorical? You're suggesting their FTL system involves literal supernatural forces? Palmer's skepticism was evident. Come on, Chief. We're soldiers, not mystics. I'm suggesting that we don't understand the physics of this universe yet, Chief replied. We've seen things that shouldn't exist. The Forerunners built structures that manipulated space-time itself. The Flood was a parasite that could corrupt any biological life. Why is it so hard to believe this universe has its own impossible phenomena? Lasky rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of command pressing down. Let's focus on what we know. These Imperials have given us 24 hours to decide. Join them or die. Dr. Glassman, how long to repair the slip space drive? Weeks, maybe months. The transition damaged core components that we can't fabricate without proper facilities. We'd need a shipyard, raw materials, time, none of which we have. So we can't run, Lasky said. Commander Bradley, honest assessment. Could we fight our way out? Bradley pulled up combat projections. If we went full burn, weapons hot, launched all our frigates and longsword squadrons, we might take down 10, maybe 15 Imperial vessels before they overwhelmed us. Their weapons are devastating at close range. Those macro cannons fire shells the size of buildings. And we've detected energy signatures consistent with nuclear-level weaponry across their fleet. We'd lose, Captain. No question. Palmer leaned forward. What about a different strategy? We've got Spartans. We could insert a strike team onto their flagship, take out their command structure, force a negotiation from a position of strength. And then what? Lasky challenged. We kill their admiral, and the remaining 39 ships blast us to atoms out of revenge? Palmer, I appreciate your tactical thinking, but this isn't a situation we can shoot our way out of. So what? We just surrender? Start worshipping their god emperor and turn our AI into scrap? I didn't say that either. The room fell silent again. Lasky looked around at his senior staff. Good people, trained soldiers and officers, all of them looking to him for answers he didn't have. Outside the viewports, the Imperial Fleet hung in space like gothic cathedrals of death. Beautiful and terrible and utterly alien, despite being built by human hands. Roland, Lasky said finally, can you hide yourself? Make it look like you're just an automated system, no true intelligence? The AI's avatar flickered. Potentially. I'd need to limit my responses, act like a sophisticated VI rather than a true AI. But Captain, the Mechanicus tech priests are invasive. They'll keep probing, keep testing. Eventually they'll figure out what I am. Eventually gives us time, Lasky replied. And time is what we need. He stood, addressing the room. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to accept their offer, conditionally. We'll agree to cooperation, cultural exchange, mutual assistance. But we're not joining the Imperium. We're not their subjects. We're allies. Independent allies working toward common goals. They won't accept that, Palmer said flatly. You heard the Inquisitor, service or death. Those were the only options. Then we make them see a third option, Lasky replied. We show them what we can offer, advanced technology they've never seen, tactical expertise, combat effectiveness. We make ourselves too valuable to destroy and too dangerous to enslave. We walk the line between ally and rival until we figure out how to either repair our drive or find another way home. Chief nodded slowly. It's risky. One wrong move, and they turn on us. Every option is risky, Lasky said. But at least this one doesn't guarantee our immediate destruction. He looked at Roland. Can you really hide what you are? I can try, the AI replied. But Captain, there's something else you should know. While the Mechanicus was probing our systems, I was probing theirs. Their technology is haunted. I don't know how else to describe it. Their machines respond to prayers and rituals in ways that violate every principle of computer science. It's like their belief actually affects reality. And their warp travel. Roland's avatar flickered with what looked like genuine fear. Captain, their navigation logs show FTL transitions that take months or years ship time, even though only days pass outside. Time flows differently in the warp. Ships get lost for centuries. Entire fleets vanish. If we try to adapt to their technology, we're gambling with physics that don't make sense. Noted, Lasky said. Which means repairing our own drive is the priority. Glassman, I want engineering teams working on the slipspace drive around the clock. Use Imperial materials if they'll provide them, but keep our core technology secret. Can you do that? I can try, Glassman replied. But if they're as invasive as you say, they'll notice what we're doing. Then we give them something else to focus on, Chief suggested. Show them our weapons, our armor, our tactics. Make them interested in what they can see and use, so they stop looking at what we're hiding. Palmer caught on immediately. A distraction. We dazzle them with Spartans and Mac cannons while engineering works on getting us home. Exactly, Lasky confirmed. It's not a perfect plan. It's probably not even a good plan, but it's what we've got. He looked around the table. I know this isn't what any of us signed up for. We came out here to explore, to defend humanity, to make the galaxy a better place. Instead, we've found a version of humanity that's given up on better and settled for survival at any cost. But we're UNSC. We don't give up. We don't stop fighting. And we sure as hell don't let anyone, not Covenant, not Flood, and not these Imperials, tell us who we have to be. Are we clear? A chorus of affirmatives answered him. Good. Commander Palmer, select your best Spartans for a demonstration tomorrow. Something impressive, but not threatening. Show them what we can do. Commander Bradley, work with Roland carefully to analyze Imperial tactics. I want to know how they fight. Dr. Glassman, start cataloging what we need for repairs. And Chief, he looked at the Spartan. I need you to talk to their space marines, soldier to soldier. Find out what they're really like. Find out if there's any common ground beneath all the religious fanaticism. Chief nodded. Understood, sir. As the meeting broke up, Chief found himself staring out the viewport at the Imperial Fleet. Somewhere on those ships, millions of humans lived and died in service to an emperor they'd never meet. Fighting wars that had raged for 10,000 years, holding back threats that Chief couldn't even imagine yet. Palmer stepped up beside him. You think this'll work? Playing nice with zealots who think we're heretics? No, Chief said honestly. But I think it'll buy us time. And time is all we need to find a way home. And if there is no way home? Chief was quiet for a long moment, watching the distant stars. Then we make the best of what we've got. Same as always. Palmer snorted. The best of a galaxy where humanity tortures its own people, worships a corpse god, and thinks technology is evil. That's a hell of a best, Chief. Yeah, he agreed. But they're still human, still fighting to survive, still protecting their own, even if their methods are... He trailed off, searching for words. Monstrous? Palmer supplied. Different, Chief corrected. We don't know what they've faced, what drove them to become what they are. Maybe in their situation, we'd have made the same choices. You don't believe that? No, Chief admitted. But I'm trying to understand them. Because if we're stuck here, we need to figure out how to live in this universe without becoming part of what makes it so dark. Outside, the Imperial ships maintained their vigil. Thousands of gun batteries pointed at the Infinity, waiting for any excuse to open fire. 40 warships crewed by millions of humans who would kill Chief and everyone he knew without hesitation, if their Inquisitor gave the order. For the first time since fighting the Didact, Master Chief felt genuinely uncertain about victory. He'd always known what he was fighting for, what he was protecting. But here, in the 41st millennium, the lines between ally and enemy were blurred beyond recognition. All he knew for certain was that the next 24 hours would determine whether the UNSC Infinity became part of the Imperium's war machine or another piece of debris floating in the void. Neither option felt like winning. Master Chief found the Space Marines in the Infinity's observation deck. A vast chamber with viewports stretching 50 meters high, designed to showcase the majesty of space during peaceful transits. The two Astartes stood like statues, their massive armor reflecting the distant stars, seemingly content to stand vigil for hours without moving. They were from the Ultramarines chapter, according to the insignia on their pauldrons, a stylized U within a laurel wreath. Brothers Sergeant Artemis and Brother Titus. Even without their helmets, they looked barely human. Faces like carved granite, eyes that held the weight of centuries, scars that spoke of battles Chief could only imagine. "Permission to approach?" Chief asked, keeping his distance. He'd learned in 30 years of combat that showing respect to fellow warriors, even potential enemies, was the first step toward understanding them. Artemis turned, his movements deliberate and measured despite the bulk of his armor. Up close, Chief could see the details. Prayer scrolls sealed with wax. Purity seals bearing names of battles fought centuries ago, kill markings etched into the ceramite plating. This wasn't just armor. It was a monument to war. "The Spartan," Artemis rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "You wish to speak with us? The Inquisitor has granted permission, though she monitors all conversations aboard this vessel." Chief nodded, unsurprised. "I wanted to understand you, soldier to soldier. You called yourselves the Emperor's Angels of Death. That's a heavy title." "It is the truth," Titus replied. He was younger than Artemis. Chief estimated maybe 2 centuries of service compared to Artemis's 4 or 5. "We are the Adeptus Astartes, genetically enhanced warriors created by the Emperor himself during the Great Crusade. We are stronger, faster, more durable than any normal human. We can spit acid, our blood clots instantly. We can survive in vacuum for limited periods. We are humanity's finest defenders." "I've seen your armor specifications," Chief said. "Impressive. But I've also seen how you treat your own people, the servitors, the conditions on your ships. How do you reconcile protecting humanity with treating them like expendable resources?" Artemis's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. "You judge us by the standards of your time, Spartan. You come from an age when humanity could afford luxuries like individual dignity and personal freedom. We do not have that luxury. Do you know how many humans die every day in the Imperium?" "Your Inquisitor said 1 million. "She understates," Artemis said flatly. "Between war, industrial accidents, famine, disease, and the predations of our enemies, the Imperium loses between 1 and 5 million humans every single day. Every day, Spartan. And yet, our population remains stable because we breed fast enough to replace the losses. That is the reality of the 41st millennium. We are not building a civilization. We are maintaining a siege against extinction that has lasted for 10,000 years." He stepped closer to the viewport. And Chief noticed the way the starlight reflected off dozens of service studs implanted in the Space Marine's skull, each one representing a century of service. "I was born on Macragge 347 years ago," Artemis continued. "I was 10 years old when I was selected for the aspirant trials. Of the 1,000 children who entered those trials, 980 died. Of the 20 who survived to receive gene seed implantation, 5 rejected the organs and died in agony. Of the 15 who completed the transformation, 3 went mad during psychological conditioning. 12 of us emerged as full battle brothers. Today, I am the only one still alive." Chief absorbed that. 98% mortality rate just to create a single space marine. "And you think that's acceptable?" "I think it's necessary," Artemis replied. "Without the Adeptus Astartes, humanity would have fallen 10,000 times over. We have held the line against horrors you cannot imagine. Orc walls that fielded billions of warriors. Tyranid hive fleets that consumed entire sectors, chaos invasions where reality itself became weaponized. And we have endured. At terrible cost, but we have endured. Titus spoke up, his tone more thoughtful. You wonder how we reconcile protection with brutality. It is simple, Spartan. We protect humanity's survival, not humanity's comfort. Every servitor created from a criminal is one less criminal draining resources. Every worker pressed into service is one more contribution to the Imperium's defense. Every sacrifice, no matter how brutal, purchases time. And time is all we have. But at what point does the cost become too high? Chief challenged. At what point are you no longer defending humanity, but just maintaining a system that grinds people into dust? Never, Artemis said with absolute certainty. Because the alternative is extinction. You want to know what exists beyond the Imperium's borders? I have fought the enemies of mankind for 3.5 centuries. Let me educate you. He activated a data slate, and holographic images materialized. Images that made Chief's combat-hardened mind recoil. The orcs, a fungal species that reproduces through spores and lives only for war. They cannot be negotiated with, cannot be reasoned with. They multiply faster than we can kill them. I have seen orc wars that turned entire sectors into charnel houses. Billions dead. Worlds reduced to ash. The image changed. The Tyranids, an extragalactic species that exists only to consume. They strip worlds of all biological matter down to bedrock, then move to the next world. Every creature they kill, they absorb and repurpose. They learn, adapt, evolve. I have watched them consume 3 star systems in 6 months. Nothing survived. Not a single bacterium. Another image. The Dark Eldar, Xenos who torture sentient beings to stave off the slow consumption of their souls by a god of excess they accidentally created. They raid Imperial worlds not for resources, but for slaves to torture in their dark city. I have recovered victims of Dark Eldar raids. They begged for death. We granted it as a mercy. The images kept coming, each one more horrifying than the last. Chaos Marines who wore the skin of their victims as cloaks. Demon princes that violated the laws of physics simply by existing. Necrons, ancient machines that had exterminated all life in the galaxy once and were awakening to do it again. And in the center of it all, Artemis said quietly, is humanity. Weak, fragile, barely holding on. The Imperium is brutal because the alternative is oblivion. Every harsh law, every cruel practice, every sacrifice, they all serve one purpose: survival. Nothing more, nothing less. Chief studied the images, his tactical mind cataloging threats. If even half of what Artemis said was true, this universe made the Covenant look like a minor threat. And your Emperor? You worship him as a god. Why? Because he is a god, Titus said simply. 10,000 years ago, the Emperor walked among us. He unified Terra, conquered the solar system, then launched the Great Crusade to reunite humanity across the stars. He was the greatest psyker who ever lived, the most brilliant general, the most visionary leader. He created us. He gestured to himself and Artemis. The Adeptus Astartes, to be his warriors. And then he was betrayed. Artemis took over the story, his voice heavy with grief that had aged for centuries. His most trusted son, the War Master Horus, fell to chaos. Half the Space Marine legions turned traitor. The Horus heresy nearly destroyed the Imperium. In the final battle, the Emperor confronted Horus aboard his flagship. He killed the traitor, but was mortally wounded in the process. For 10,000 years, he has sat upon the golden throne on Terra. his dying body sustained by the sacrifice of 1,000 psychers every day. He cannot speak, he cannot move, but his will guides us still. His psychic presence lights the Astronomicon, the beacon that allows ships to navigate the warp. Without him, the Imperium falls. 1,000 psychers a day? Chief felt sick. You sacrifice 1,000 people daily to keep one man alive? To keep humanity alive, Artemis corrected. Without the Astronomicon, warp travel becomes impossible. Without warp travel, the Imperium fragments into isolated systems that fall one by one to Xenos and chaos. The Emperor's sacrifice saves trillions, and those 1,000 psychers die willingly, knowing their deaths serve humanity's survival. Chief was quiet for a long moment, processing the horror of what he was hearing. 1,000,000 worlds, 10,000 years of war, enemies on every side. And in the middle, humans clinging to survival by grinding their own people into fuel for a war machine that could never stop. You think we're monsters, Titus observed. I can see it in your body language, despite your armor. You judge us by the standards of your better age. I think you've forgotten what you're fighting for, Chief said carefully. You're so focused on survival that you've stopped asking if survival is worth the cost. Because survival is always worth the cost, Artemis replied. Extinction is permanent. Brutality can be corrected later if we ever achieve peace. But we must survive first. And if peace never comes, if this is just eternal war with no end, then we endure, Artemis said. Because we are Adeptus Astartes. We know no fear. We know no doubt. We know only duty. He paused, then asked, What drives you, Spartan? Why do you fight? Chief thought about that. He thought about Dr. Halsey taking him from his parents at age 6, about the brutal training that had killed half his fellow Spartans, about 30 years of war against the Covenant, about watching comrades die while he survived again and again, about the weight of being humanity's weapon. I fight to protect people, he said finally. Not abstract concepts like humanity or the Imperium. Individual people, the ones who can't protect themselves. I've made hard choices. I've sacrificed soldiers when necessary. But I've never forgotten that every casualty is a person, not a statistic. The moment I start seeing people as expendable resources is the moment I become something I can't come back from. Noble, Titus said, and he sounded genuine, but impractical at our scale. How do you maintain that perspective when you command billions, when entire worlds are the smallest tactical units? You remember one person, Chief replied. Just one. Keep their face in your mind. Keep their name. Make every decision while thinking about that one person, and you'll never completely lose sight of what you're fighting for. Artemis was quiet for a long moment, and Chief thought he saw something flicker behind those ancient eyes. Maybe recognition, maybe memory, maybe just exhaustion. I had a name once, Artemis said softly. Before I became Brother Sergeant Artemis of the Ultramarines 3rd Company, I was called Marcus. I had a sister. She died in the aspirant trials. I watched her die. I have not thought about her in 2 centuries. He looked at Chief. Perhaps you are wiser than I gave you credit for, Spartan. Or perhaps you are simply younger, still holding on to illusions that time will burn away. Maybe, Chief acknowledged. But I'd rather hold on to illusions than forget why I'm fighting in the first place. Titus shook his head slowly. You will not last long in this millennium, Spartan. This is not a universe that rewards hope or compassion. It rewards strength, faith, and the willingness to do what must be done, no matter the cost. Then maybe it needs someone who remembers there's more to humanity than just surviving, Chief replied. The three warriors stood in silence, watching the stars. Despite everything, the differences in philosophy, the gulf of time and culture, the fundamental disagreement about what it meant to be human, Chief felt a strange kinship with these space marines. They were soldiers. They'd seen horror. They carried impossible weight. They kept fighting when any sane person would have given up. They were broken in ways Chief recognized because he was broken in similar ways. The Inquisitor will ask you to join us, Artemis said finally, to fight alongside the Imperium. What will you say? I'll say we're willing to cooperate, Chief replied, but not to submit. We're not your subjects. We're not your servants. If we fight, it's as equals. Equals? Artemis actually smiled, a grim expression that held no warmth. Spartan, you command one ship. The Imperium commands 1,000,000 worlds. You have 17,000 personnel. We have quadrillions. You have advanced technology, yes, but we have faith, numbers, and 10,000 years of experience fighting nightmares. You are not our equals. Not even close. Then I guess we'll have to prove you wrong, Chief said. Titus laughed, a harsh bark of sound. I like you, Spartan. You will die horribly in this universe, but I like you. Perhaps before the end, we will fight together. I would welcome that. So would I, Chief said, surprised to find he meant it. As he left the observation deck, Chief activated his comm. Captain Lasky, I've spoken with the Space Marines. They're complicated, dangerous, brutal, but not entirely beyond reason. If we're going to survive here, we'll need to understand them, really understand them. Did you find any common ground? Lasky asked. Chief thought about Artemis's dead sister, about Titus's acknowledgement that the Imperium's methods were monstrous but necessary, about 347 years of unending war that had turned a boy named Marcus into Brother Sergeant Artemis, Angel of Death. Maybe, Chief said. Or maybe I'd just found out how far humanity can fall and still call itself human. I'm not sure which scares me more. The Mechanicus delegation arrived at dawn cycle, if such a term had meaning aboard a ship floating in the void. Magos Theta 79 brought with him 20 tech priests and a proposal that Dr. Glassman found simultaneously fascinating and horrifying. Your vessel's motive systems are damaged, the Magos stated, his mechanical voice buzzing through multiple frequencies. The slip space drive you reference operates on principles we do not recognize. However, we have studied your energy signatures. The technology bears resemblance to ancient archaeotech from the dark age of technology. With proper rituals and the Omnissiah's blessing, we may restore function. Glassman stood in Engineering Bay 3, surrounded by Infinity crew and red-robed tech priests who looked more machine than human. Some had replaced their arms with mechanical tentacles. Others had removed their eyes entirely, installing sensor arrays that clicked and whirred. One had what looked like a third lung grafted to his chest, exhaling incense that made Glassman's eyes water. We appreciate the offer, Glassman said carefully, but our drive system is extremely delicate. One mistake could cause a catastrophic failure. All technology is delicate, Theta 79 replied. All technology must be approached with proper reverence. Observe. The Magos approached a damaged power conduit, one that the Infinity's engineers had been troubleshooting for hours. Instead of diagnostics equipment, he produced incense, sacred oils, and a data slate covered in what looked like prayers written in binary code. O Omnissiah, Spirit of all machines, hear my prayer, the Magos chanted. Grant this humble servant knowledge of thy sacred mysteries. Reveal unto me the malfunction that plagues this conduit." He anointed the conduit with oil, burned incense, then pressed his mechadendrites, mechanical tentacles, against the housing. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the conduit status lights flickered, shifted from red to amber to green. What the hell? Lieutenant Rao, one of Glassman's junior engineers, stared in disbelief. That should have taken another 3 hours of circuit tracing. How did... The machine spirit was angry, Theta 79 explained. It had not received proper maintenance rituals. I soothed it with the litany of reactivation, blessed its components, and apologized for the neglect. Now it functions correctly. Glassman wanted to argue, to explain that machines didn't have spirits, that oil and prayer couldn't fix electrical failures. But the conduit was working perfectly, with none of the diagnostic work that should have been necessary. That's not how technology works, Glassman said weakly. In your universe, perhaps, the Magos replied. But you are in the realm of the Omnissiah now. Here, all technology is alive. All technology requires proper respect and ritual. Deny this truth, and your machines will rebel. Accept it, and they will serve faithfully. Roland's voice whispered through Glassman's neural implant, too quiet for anyone else to hear. Doctor, I've been monitoring the Mechanicus repairs. Their methods shouldn't work. They're not following any logical troubleshooting procedure. But they are working. I don't understand it. It's like reality itself is responding to their belief. Glassman felt a chill run down his spine. He'd spent 40 years as an engineer, building his understanding of the universe on mathematical principles and physical laws. Now he was being told that prayer was more effective than diagnostics. Magos, he said carefully, if we allow you to work on our slip-space drive, what exactly would the process entail? Theta 79's mechanical eyes focused on him with disturbing intensity. First, we would perform the rite of awakening to commune with the drive's machine spirit. Then the litany of maintenance to soothe any anger at previous neglect. We would anoint all components with sacred oils, burn incense to purify the workspace, and chant the proper hymns while performing physical repairs. The process would take approximately 6 weeks, assuming the machine spirit is cooperative. 6 weeks, Glassman repeated. Your initial estimate was months. That was before I understood the scope of the damage. The machine spirit is wounded but not broken. With proper care and supplication, it will heal. However, the Magos paused. There is a complication. Of course there is, Glassman muttered. Your vessel's abominable intelligence systems interfere with proper communion. The machine spirits are confused, receiving contradictory instructions from both sacred ritual and profane digital command. This creates dissonance. For optimal repair work, the AI systems must be disabled. Not happening, Glassman said flatly. Roland coordinates every major system on this ship. Without him, we'd need to manually control life support, navigation, weapons, communications, and a dozen other critical functions simultaneously. It would take hundreds of additional crew members we don't have. Then your repair timeline extends to months, Theta 79 stated. Possibly years. The choice is yours, but understand, the Omnissiah does not share his gifts with abominable intelligence. We can work around it, but progress will be severely limited. Before Glassman could respond, alarms screamed across the ship. Roland's avatar materialized, his expression urgent. Inquisitor Thessaly is requesting Captain Lasky's immediate presence on the bridge. We have incoming vessels, unidentified, not Imperial signatures. The bridge was controlled chaos when Chief arrived. Lasky stood at the center, studying holographic displays showing 3 massive ships emerging from what looked like a tear in reality itself. But these ships were nothing like the Gothic Imperial vessels. They were twisted, wrong, covered in spikes and chains, and what looked like screaming faces molded into the hull armor. IF reads nothing, the sensor officer reported. Energy signatures are... Captain, this doesn't make sense. Those ships are radiating thermal energy at levels that should melt their own hulls, and I'm detecting biological components. Parts of those ships are alive. Inquisitor Thessaly strode onto the bridge, flanked by Artemis and Titus. Her face was pale, and for the first time since Chief had met her, he saw genuine fear in her eyes. "Chaos," she whispered. "By the Emperor's throne, they followed us through. Captain Lasky, your vessel must go to battle stations immediately. Those are not ships. They are abominations. Chaos space marine vessels, corrupted by the ruinous powers." "Chaos?" Lasky asked. "You've mentioned that before. What exactly is..." "No time for theology lessons," Thessaly snapped. "Those vessels contain former space marines who betrayed the Emperor during the Horus Heresy. They have spent 10,000 years in the warp, their bodies and souls corrupted by demonic influence. They are stronger than loyalist Astartes, utterly merciless, and they want your ship. Captain, if they board the Infinity, everyone aboard will die or worse. There are fates worse than death in this universe, and Chaos Marines specialize in inflicting them." Admiral Vane's face appeared on the main screen. "Captain Lasky, this is Admiral Vane of the Eternal Vigil. Hostile forces have been detected. They emerged from the same warp rupture that brought your vessel through. It appears they have been tracking your unique energy signature. Imperial Fleet is moving to engage. I strongly recommend you bring your weapons online and prepare for combat." Lasky looked at Chief, then at Commander Bradley. "Options?" "Mac cannons are charged," Bradley reported. "Archer missile pods loaded, point defense systems online. We're ready, Captain, but I have no tactical data on these targets. Unknown armor thickness, unknown weapons capabilities, unknown." The lead Chaos vessel opened fire. Energy beams the color of diseased flesh lanced across space, striking the shields of the nearest Imperial cruiser. The shields held for 3 seconds, then collapsed. The beams continued through, carving into the hull like a scalpel through tissue. Atmosphere vented. Secondary explosions rippled along the cruiser's flank. "Holy hell," Bradley whispered. "Those weapons punched through void shields like they weren't even there." "Warp-based weaponry," Artemis explained, his voice grim. "They don't just damage matter, they corrupt it. Molecules don't simply explode. They're transformed into something that shouldn't exist. There is no defense except destroying the attacking vessel before it fires." "Then let's destroy them," Lasky said. "Weapons, target the lead vessel. Fire Mac cannons, full salvo." The Infinity's main weapons fired, magnetically accelerated slugs, moving at a significant fraction of light speed, each one massing 600 tons and carrying enough kinetic energy to crack a continent. 3 slugs streaked across the void, covering the distance to the Chaos vessel in seconds. They hit. The first slug struck the vessel's prow, punching through corrupted armor and detonating deep inside the hull. The second hit midships, the impact sending ripples of destruction through internal decks. The third missed as the Chaos vessel rotated, but the damage was done. Atmosphere and debris vented from massive wounds. But the ship didn't die. Chief watched in disbelief as the wounds began to close. Flesh, actual biological tissue, grew across the breaches, sealing them like scar tissue. The ship's energy signature stabilized, strengthened. "It's regenerating," Roland reported, his voice carrying a note of something Chief had never heard from an AI before. Horror. "Captain, that vessel is partially organic. It's healing damage in real time." "Then we hit it again," Lasky ordered. "Continuous fire. Don't give it time to heal. Archer pods, fire for effect." Hundreds of missiles streaked toward the Chaos vessels, their trails painting the void with light. Imperial ships joined the barrage, macro cannons firing building-sized shells, lance batteries adding their own energy weapons to the firestorm. Space became a killing field of explosions and debris. And the Chaos vessels kept coming. "They're insane," Commander Palmer breathed, watching the tactical display. "They're absorbing damage that would destroy any normal ship and just pushing through." "What kind of enemy does that?" "The kind that doesn't fear death," Thessaly replied. "Chaos Marines serve dark gods who promise immortality, power, pleasure, or glory beyond mortal comprehension. Death is not an ending for them. It is merely transition. They will not retreat. They will not surrender. They will fight until destroyed or until they destroy us. There is no middle ground." The lead Chaos vessel suddenly accelerated, its engines flaring with light that hurt to look at. It was heading straight for the Infinity. "They're ramming," Bradley shouted. "Brace for impact." "All power to forward shields," Lasky commanded. "Helm, evasive maneuvers. Get us out of their path." The Infinity's engines burned, the massive ship beginning to turn. But it was 5.7 kilometers long and massed millions of tons. Even with Forerunner-enhanced drives, it couldn't turn fast enough. The Chaos vessel struck the Infinity's starboard side at thousands of kilometers per hour. Chief felt the impact through his armor, felt the deck pitch beneath him as the ship's inertial dampeners struggled to compensate. Alarms screamed. Damage reports flooded in. Hull breaches on decks 9 through 14, shield generators overloading, casualties across multiple sections. And then he heard something that made his blood run cold. "Boarding klaxons," Roland announced. "They're launching assault pods. 30 contacts. They're not trying to sink us. They're trying to take us." Thessaly was already moving, her power armor's servos whining. "Artemis, Titus, with me. Captain Lasky, where are your armories? We need to establish defensive perimeters immediately. If Chaos Marines reach critical systems..." "Chief," Lasky cut in. "Take every Spartan we have. Stop those boarders. Whatever they are, whatever they want, don't let them take this ship." Master Chief checked his assault rifle's ammunition counter, felt the familiar weight of combat settle over him like a second skin. 30 years of war had prepared him for this. Fighting in ship corridors was his specialty. Urban combat, close quarters, overwhelming force against smaller numbers, this was where Spartans excelled. But as he sprinted toward the boarding locations, with Palmer and Fire Team Osiris behind him, he couldn't shake the memory of Artemis's words. Chaos Marines serve dark gods who promise immortality, power, pleasure, or glory beyond mortal comprehension. The Covenant had been zealots fighting for their gods. The Flood had been mindless parasites seeking consumption. But Chaos sounded like something worse. Intelligent enemies who'd chosen damnation and embraced it willingly. Chief reached the first breach point just as the boarding pod's hatches blew open. Smoke and the stench of corruption flooded the corridor. And through the smoke, something massive moved. It was shaped like a space marine, but wrong. The armor was black and gold, covered in spikes and chains. 8 pointed stars, symbols that made Chief's eyes hurt to focus on, decorated every surface. And the figure's helmet had been removed, revealing a face that shouldn't exist. The Chaos Marine smiled, revealing teeth that had been filed to points. His eyes glowed with unholy light. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that seemed to bypass Chief's ears and speak directly into his mind. "Ah," the Chaos Marine purred. "New souls to harvest. The Blood God will be pleased." Then he charged, moving faster than something that size should be able to move. And Master Chief learned that the 41st Millennium's horrors were just beginning. The Chaos Marine covered 20 meters in 3 seconds, his chain axe screaming to life. A whirling blade studded with teeth that howled with more than mechanical fury. Chief fired a controlled burst from his MA-5D assault rifle, the armor-piercing round striking center mass. The rounds hit, penetrated. The Chaos Marine staggered and kept coming. "Spread out," Chief ordered, diving left as the chain axe carved through the bulkhead where he'd been standing. Metal screamed. Sparks showered the corridor. Palmer went right, her M60 Magnum barking 3 times. Headshots, perfect accuracy. The Chaos Marine's helmet cracked. Blood, black and viscous, wrong, sprayed from the wounds. But the warrior didn't fall. Instead, he laughed. "Mortal weapons," the Chaos Marine snarled. "You think bullets can stop one who has bathed in the Blood God's glory? I have fought for 10,000 years. I have slaughtered worlds. I am Khorne's chosen, and I am immortal." Fireteam Osiris opened fire from behind Chief, coordinated shots from 3 angles simultaneously. The Chaos Marine's armor sparked, cracked, began to fail. Still he came forward, swinging his chain axe in arcs that would bisect a tank. Chief pulled a plasma grenade from his belt, Covenant technology, adapted and improved. He primed it, timed the throw perfectly, and stuck it directly to the Chaos Marine's chest plate. The warrior looked down at the blue-white light, and for the first time, his confidence wavered. By the plasma detonation turned the corridor into a miniature sun. The Chaos Marine's scream cut off abruptly as superheated plasma reduced his upper torso to ash. His legs remained standing for a moment, then collapsed. "Target down," Chief reported, breathing hard. 1 enemy, 1 Chaos Marine. It had taken 5 Spartans and a plasma grenade to drop him. And according to Thessaly, there were 30 boarding pods. "Chief, we've got contacts all over the ship." Palmer's voice came through. "Decks 7, 9, 12, 14, 16. They're spreading out, hitting multiple locations simultaneously. This isn't a random boarding action. They're targeting specific systems." Roland's avatar flickered into existence, his digital face showing strain. "They're trying to reach engineering and the bridge. If they take either, they can cripple or capture the ship. I'm sealing blast doors, venting atmosphere in compromised sections. But Captain, these things are tough. Vacuum exposure barely slows them down. Spartans, form into fire teams," Chief commanded over the battle net. "Palmer, take Osiris and secure engineering. I'll head to the bridge. Fire Team Majestic, you're on roving defense. Plug gaps as they appear. Nobody fights alone. These things are too dangerous for solo engagements. And everyone, aim for joints, optics, exposed cabling. Their armor is tough, but it has weaknesses." "What about Imperial support?" Palmer asked. "Where are their Space Marines?" As if summoned by the question, the sound of bolter fire echoed through adjacent corridors, distinctive explosive reports that made Chief's assault rifle sound like a cap gun. He rushed toward the sound and found Brother Artemis and Brother Titus fighting 3 Chaos Marines in the ship's starboard armory. The difference between watching Space Marines spar and watching them in actual combat was the difference between a training exercise and a natural disaster. Artemis moved with precision that defied his armor's bulk, his power sword, a blade wreathed in blue energy, carving through chaos armor like it was paper. Titus wielded his bolter one-handed, each shot placing a mass-reactive round with surgical accuracy. His other hand held a combat knife that looked small in his grasp, but was longer than Chief's forearm. The Chaos Marines fought back with equal ferocity. One wielded a weapon that seemed to be part gun, part screaming demon. It fired rounds that twisted through the air like living things, seeking flesh. Another had replaced his left arm entirely with a massive claw that dripped with acid. The third chanted in a language that made Chief's ears hurt, and where his words fell, the deck plating began to corrode and warp. "Spartans!" Artemis shouted without taking his eyes off his opponents. "Support fire on the sorcerer, the one chanting." Chief didn't hesitate. He and his team opened fire on the chanting Chaos Marine. The warrior's armor absorbed punishment that should have killed him 3 times over, but the concentrated fire disrupted his chanting. Whatever ritual he'd been attempting fizzled, the corrupted deck plating returning to normal. Artemis used the opening. His power sword lanced forward, punching through the sorcerer's chest plate and out the back. The blade's energy field discharged directly into the Chaos Marine's body. The warrior convulsed, screamed, and exploded in a shower of gore and warp energy that made Chief's motion sensors go haywire. "2 left," Titus growled, dropping his empty bolter and drawing a second combat knife. "For the Emperor." The fight became a blur of violence too fast for normal eyes to track. Chief found himself fighting beside warriors who'd been killing for centuries, whose experience in close combat made his 30 years look like basic training. But the Spartans held their own. Palmer put a grenade into the claw-armed Chaos Marine's joint servos, and when the warrior stumbled, Titus was there with both knives, opening the armor at its weak points like a surgeon. The last Chaos Marine, realizing he was outmatched, did something Chief wasn't expecting. He pulled a device from his belt, something that looked organic, pulsing with sick light, and crushed it. Reality screamed. Chief felt it through his armor, through his bones, through something deeper than physical sensation. The air turned cold. Frost formed on his visor. And through the deck plating, something began to claw its way into real space. "He summoned a demon," Artemis shouted, his voice carrying genuine fear for the first time. "Back! Everyone back!" The deck exploded upward. What emerged shouldn't have been possible. Chief's mind struggled to process what his eyes were seeing. A creature made of rage and brass and burning blood, standing 4 meters tall, wielding a sword that wept fire. It had a vaguely humanoid shape, but wrong. Too many joints, too many angles. Looking at it made Chief's head hurt. "Bloodletter of Corn," Titus identified, backing away. "Minor demon, but deadly. Spartans, do not let it touch you. Its blade can sever souls." The demon turned its eyeless head toward Chief and smiled with a mouth full of bronze teeth. When it spoke, reality bent around its words. "Fresh blood, fresh skulls. The blood God hungers, and I am his blade." It charged. Chief fired. Every round hit. Every round passed through the demon like it was made of smoke. The creature didn't slow. It swung its burning sword in an arc that would have decapitated Chief if Artemis hadn't intercepted, his power sword meeting the demon blade in a shower of sparks and impossible energies. "Mortal weapons are useless," Artemis grunted, straining against the demon's inhuman strength. "Titus, the frag sanctified. Now!" Titus drew a grenade that glowed with golden light, clearly different from standard munitions. "Spartans, clear the area." Chief grabbed Palmer and dove behind cover. Titus threw the grenade. It struck the demon's chest and detonated in a flash of light that felt warm, like sunlight after winter. The demon shrieked, a sound that shattered viewports and set off every alarm in the section. Its form began to dissolve, unraveling like smoke in wind. Within seconds, only scorch marks remained. What the hell was that? Palmer demanded, her voice shaking slightly. Chief had never heard her sound shaken before. That, Artemis said grimly, was a minor demon, a foot soldier of the Chaos Gods. Had it been a greater demon, a bloodthirster, a lord of change, a keeper of secrets, we would all be dead or worse. He looked at Chief. Welcome to the true horror of the 41st millennium, Spartan. This is what we fight. Not just warriors of flesh and blood, but demons from beyond reality. And that boarding party has brought dozens of them aboard your vessel. Chief's tactical display lit up with contact markers spreading across the infinity like cancer. Red icons. Too many red icons. Captain Lasky, Chief reported over comms. We've got a bigger problem than enemy soldiers. They're summoning demons, plural. We need containment strategies, and we need them now. Lasky's response came through strained but controlled. Understood. Inquisitor Thessaly is coordinating with Imperial forces. Chief, she's talking about sealing entire sections, venting them to space with crew still inside. She says it's the only way to stop demonic corruption from spreading. Negative, Chief said immediately. We don't abandon our people. There has to be another way. There isn't, Artemis said flatly. Demonic corruption spreads like disease. Every soul it touches becomes a vector. If sections are compromised beyond recovery, they must be purged. It is harsh but necessary. This is the calculus of war in our millennium. Chief looked at the scorch marks where the demon had been, then at his motion tracker showing more enemy contacts converging on their position. In his HUD, casualty reports were mounting. 15 dead, 40 wounded, and the boarding action had only been underway for 10 minutes. He thought about Artemis's earlier words. Survival requires sacrifice. He thought about the Imperium's brutal logic, about 10,000 years of wars that ground people into statistics. And he thought about the face he kept in his mind, the one person who reminded him why individual lives mattered. He thought about Cortana, about Dr. Halsey, about every Marine he'd fought beside who had names and families and dreams beyond being numbers on a casualty list. No, Chief said. We don't give up on our people. If there are crew in those sections, we go in and get them out. Spartans don't leave anyone behind. Then Spartans die needlessly, Artemis replied. I have seen this play out 10,000 times. Sentiment costs lives. Pragmatism saves them. Maybe, Chief acknowledged. But we're going to try anyway. Because the moment we start calculating which people are worth saving and which aren't, we've already lost the war that matters. Palmer stepped up beside him. Chief's right. We're UNSC. We don't abandon our own. If there are crew members in compromised sections, we extract them. Period. Artemis studied them both for a long moment, then sighed. You are young, foolish, noble. You remind me of what we were, before the Imperium taught us the cost of nobility. He raised his bolter. Very well. The Ultramarines will support your rescue operation. But understand, if corruption spreads because of your sentimentality, the blood is on your hands. I can live with that, Chief said. Can you live with abandoning innocent people to demons? For the first time, Artemis looked uncertain. I have lived with worse, Spartan. I have done worse. But perhaps... He trailed off, then shook his head. No matter. We waste time. If we are to attempt this foolishness, we must move quickly. The longer demons remain in real space, the stronger they become. Chief pulled up the tactical map, identifying the sections with highest crew density and most enemy contacts. Deck 12, the medical bay. 73 crew members, including wounded from the initial impact. 3 demon contacts. There, he said, highlighting the location. We hit the medical bay first, extract the wounded, then work our way through compromised sections systematically. A plan, Titus observed. Suicidal, but a plan nonetheless. Very well, for the Emperor and whatever it is you Spartans fight for. For humanity, Chief said simply. The real kind, not statistics, people. As they moved out, fighting through corrupted corridors filled with enemies that shouldn't exist, Chief couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The chaos boarding action was a crisis, yes, but it was also an education. The 41st millennium didn't just have enemies, it had nightmares. And the UNSC Infinity had just learned that survival here would require adapting to horrors that no training could prepare them for. Behind them, more demon-summoning rituals were being completed. Ahead, the medical bay waited, full of wounded personnel and the monsters hunting them. And somewhere in the void, 2 more chaos vessels were breaking through the Imperial lines, heading straight for the Infinity, with guns blazing and holds full of corrupted space marines, eager to claim their prize. The Battle of the Damned Sector had truly begun. The medical bay on Deck 12 looked like something out of a nightmare. Chief breached the door to find overturned medical equipment, flickering lights casting shadows that moved wrong, and the copper stench of blood mixed with something else. Something that smelled like burning sulfur and rotting flowers simultaneously. 3 demons prowled through the wreckage. These weren't like the bloodletter they'd faced before. These were smaller, almost childlike in stature, but wrong in ways that made Chief's targeting systems glitch. They had pastel-colored skin that shifted between pink and blue and sickly green. Their faces bore permanent smiles that stretched too wide. And they giggled. High-pitched sounds that made Chief's teeth ache. Horrors of Sinch, Artemis identified, his voice tight. Lesser demons of the Changer of Ways. Do not let them cast their witch fire. It burns body and soul simultaneously. The medical staff and wounded had barricaded themselves in the surgical theater. Chief could see them through the reinforced glass. Nurses, doctors, and injured crew members huddled behind overturned operating tables. One of the demons was at the door, its clawed hands carving through the metal like it was clay. Chief didn't wait for a plan. He opened fire, his assault rifle stitching rounds across the demon's back. The creature turned, its smile widening impossibly. "New friends," it chirped in a voice like breaking glass. "Want to play? Want to burn? Want to change into something beautiful and terrible and..." Palmer's sniper round took it in what passed for a head. The demon dissolved into technicolor smoke that reformed 3 meters to the left, completely unharmed. "Corporeal damage is insufficient," Titus called out. Demons are creatures of the warp given temporary form. You must destroy their connection to real space or banish them with consecrated weapons. "We don't have consecrated weapons," Chief replied, switching to armor-piercing rounds. They were equally useless. "Then we improvise," Palmer said. She pulled a plasma grenade. "Chief, you said these things are made of warp energy, right? Energy from another dimension?" "Correct," Artemis confirmed. "They are not truly alive. They are fragments of their gods given form and malevolent purpose. then maybe they don't like competing energy sources. Palmer primed the grenade and threw it directly at the demon carving through the door. The plasma detonation engulfed the horror in white-hot energy. The demon shrieked, a sound of genuine pain, and its form began to destabilize. It didn't die, but it retreated, pulling back from the door and hissing at the Spartans like an angry cat. "It worked," Palmer shouted. "Plasma disrupts their forms." "Temporarily," Artemis warned. "But temporary may be enough. Spartans, plasma weapons on all targets. Drive them back." The battle became a desperate game of keep away. The Spartans used plasma grenades to force the demons into corners, while Artemis and Titus took positions with their consecrated weapons, a power sword and blessed bolter rounds that actually harmed the creatures. Every time a horror tried to cast its witchfire, multicolored flames that clung to armor and burned through shields, a plasma grenade would detonate nearby, disrupting the spell. It was working, slowly, expensively. They were burning through grenades at an alarming rate. "Chief, we need to get those people out," Palmer called. "I can't hold this position forever." Chief reached the surgical theater door and ripped it open with his armor's enhanced strength. Inside, he found 73 terrified people staring at him like he was their only hope. Maybe he was. "UNSC personnel, on your feet," Chief commanded. "We're evacuating this section. Follow me, stay close, and do exactly what I say. Move." Dr. Savannah Chen, the Infinity's chief medical officer, stepped forward. "Commander, we have 12 critical patients. They can't walk. We need stretchers, medical equipment." "No time," Chief cut her off. "We carry them. Fire Team Osiris, assist with wounded. Everyone else, form a defensive perimeter." The evacuation began. Spartans carried wounded personnel, their enhanced strength making short work of loads that would have required multiple people. Medical staff grabbed whatever supplies they could carry. The procession moved toward the door like a desperate exodus. That's when the walls started bleeding. Chief saw it happen in real time. The bulkheads, the deck plating, the overhead, all began to weep crimson fluid that smelled like copper and corruption. And where the blood touched, reality weakened. He could see through the walls into spaces that shouldn't exist. Vast halls of brass and bone, lakes of blood, mountains made of skulls. "The veil is thinning," Artemis warned. "The demons have been here too long. Reality is losing cohesion. Captain Lasky." He switched to open comms. "You must vent this section immediately. Explosive decompression will disrupt the summoning rituals and force the demons back into the warp." "Negative," Chief countermanded. "We have 73 personnel in active evacuation. Give us 2 minutes." "You don't have 2 minutes," Artemis shot back. "Look." Chief looked. Through the thinning veil of reality, something massive was taking notice of the Infinity. Something that stood on a mountain of skulls and wore a crown of burning brass. Something that was vast and terrible and very, very interested in the fresh souls aboard this ship. "Korn," Titus whispered, making the sign of the Aquila. "The blood god sees us. If his full attention turns here, then we move faster," Chief said. "Spartans, double time. Get these people to the evacuation shuttles." They ran, through corridors that wept blood. Past viewports that showed spaces between spaces where things with too many teeth smiled and beckoned. Around corners where gravity occasionally reversed or time moved backward or both simultaneously. The medical staff kept pace as best they could. But they weren't enhanced soldiers. They were doctors and nurses trained to save lives, not flee through literal hell. Some stumbled, some screamed. All of them kept moving because the alternative was worse. Chief brought up the rear, laying down covering fire as the horrors gave chase. His assault rifle was nearly empty. His plasma grenades were gone. But he still had his combat knife and 3 decades of experience that said sometimes the only way through impossible odds was to simply refuse to accept defeat. A horror lunged at a wounded Marine being carried by Spartan Tanaka. Chief intercepted, catching the demon's claws on his armor. The creature's touch burned even through energy shields and titanium plating. Warning lights flashed across his HUD, shield integrity dropping, armor temperature critical. Chief stabbed upward with his combat knife, driving the blade into the horror's chest. The demon laughed at the futility of mortal steel against warp stuff. Then Chief activated the knife's plasma battery, a forerunner enhancement to the standard design, and the blade became a miniature sun. The horror didn't laugh anymore. "Section clear," Palmer reported from ahead. "All personnel evacuated to Shuttle Bay 7. Roland, seal the section and vent it," Chief ordered, sprinting for the exit as the horror dissolved into screaming smoke behind him. "Now." He cleared the blast door with a second to spare. It slammed shut behind him with hydraulic finality. Then came the sound of explosive decompression, atmosphere screaming into vacuum, taking with it the blood-soaked reality corruption and hopefully the demons along with it. Chief slumped against the wall, his armor's cooling systems working overtime. Around him, the rescued personnel were being triaged, treated, comforted. 73 people, all alive, all saved. "Foolish," Artemis said, but his tone was approving. "Reckless, inefficient, but effective. You saved them all, Spartan. Against all tactical logic, you saved them all." "That's the job," Chief replied simply. "In the Imperium, we would have sealed them in and considered them acceptable losses." Artemis continued. "But you risked your lives, expended valuable resources, and completed an objective that had no strategic value beyond saving individual lives. Why?" Chief looked at the medical personnel. Dr. Chen checking on her patients, nurses administering aid, wounded Marines being stabilized. Every one of them was someone's family, someone's friend, someone who mattered beyond their function as Imperial resources. "Because that's what makes us different from them," Chief said, gesturing at the sealed section where chaos had tried to establish its beachhead. "They see people as fuel for war. We see people as the reason for war. The moment we stop seeing individuals, we become what we're fighting against." Titus shook his head slowly. "You will not last in this universe, Spartan. That philosophy is noble but unsustainable at scale. When you command billions, when you fight on 1,000,000 fronts, when every day brings fresh horrors, you will learn to make the calculations we make, to sacrifice the few for the many, to accept losses as necessary, or you will break, and breaking costs far more lives than pragmatism." "Maybe," Chief acknowledged. "But I'd rather break trying to save everyone than survive by deciding some people don't matter." Before Artemis could respond, Roland's avatar appeared, his expression urgent. "Captain Lasky to all combat personnel. The Imperial Fleet has broken the Chaos Assault. 2 enemy vessels destroyed, 1 fleeing. But the Infinity took heavy damage. We have hull breaches on 15 decks, casualties approaching 200, and structural integrity is compromised in multiple sections." "And the Chaos boarding parties?" Chief asked. 18 of 30 pods neutralized. The remaining 12 are being hunted down by combined UNSC and Imperial forces. Inquisitor Thessaly reports that demonic manifestation risk has decreased to acceptable levels now that we've disrupted the major summoning sites. Chief pulled up the casualty list, seeing the names scroll past. 200 wounded, 47 dead. Every one of them a person he'd failed to protect. Every one of them someone who trusted the UNSC to keep them safe. The price of your heroism, Artemis observed, reading Chief's body language. Those 73 you saved? They cost 47 others who died while you were playing rescue instead of establishing proper defensive positions. In the Imperium, we would have sacrificed the 73, saved the 47, and considered it a net gain. And I would have lost 73 people who deserved better, Chief replied. Math isn't morality, Artemis. Just because you can calculate the most efficient path doesn't mean it's the right one. Right is a luxury, Artemis said. Survival is necessity. Then maybe we need to redefine what survival means, Chief shot back. If we survive but lose everything that makes survival worthwhile, what's the point? Artemis was quiet for a long moment, studying Chief with those ancient eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall. Finally, he said, "You remind me of someone. Long ago, when I was young and still believed in nobility over pragmatism. He died heroically, stupidly, saving people who were already doomed. I mourned him for decades. And then I stopped mourning because I learned that survival requires accepting casualties without emotional attachment. I'm sorry," Chief said, and meant it. "But I won't become that. I can't." "Then you will die here," Artemis predicted. "The 41st millennium does not reward nobility. It punishes it, brutally, repeatedly, without mercy." He paused. "But perhaps that is what this dark age needs. A reminder of what humanity was before we accepted darkness as our only option." Palmer approached, her armor scarred from combat. "Chief, Captain Lasky is calling a command briefing. Apparently, the Inquisitor wants to discuss the Infinity's combat performance and our concerning tendency toward unnecessary risk in personnel recovery." Chief sighed. "Of course she does. Let's go see what new horror awaits us in the 41st millennium's bureaucracy." As they walked toward the briefing room, Chief glanced back at the sealed section. Somewhere beyond those walls, reality had torn. Demons had manifested. Hell had tried to claim his ship. And 73 people had survived because he'd refused to accept that some people weren't worth saving. In the 41st millennium, that made him either a hero or a fool. Chief honestly wasn't sure which. But he knew one thing with certainty. He'd make the same choice again. Consequences be damned. Because that's what Spartans did. They didn't leave anyone behind, even if it meant standing alone against an entire universe that had forgotten why that mattered. The command briefing room was a study in contrasts. On one side sat the UNSC leadership, Captain Lasky, Commander Palmer, Dr. Glassman, and Master Chief. Their uniforms and armor bearing the scars of recent combat, but maintaining that air of organized professionalism that defined 26th century military culture. On the other side sat the Imperials, Inquisitor Thessaly, Admiral Vane via hololith projection, Magos Theta 79, and the Space Marines Artemis and Titus, representing 10,000 years of survival through brutal pragmatism. Between them lay the holographic display showing the aftermath of the battle. The Infinity hung in space, scarred but intact. Around it, the Imperial Fleet maintained defensive positions, and in the distance, debris fields marked where 2 Chaos vessels had been destroyed. The third had fled back into the warp, but everyone in the room knew it would return. Chaos always returned. "Casualties," Admiral Vane began without preamble. his aged face severe on the hololith. Imperial forces lost one cruiser, the Righteous Fury, with all hands. 12,000 souls. 3 additional vessels sustained major damage. Combined UNSC and Imperial casualties from boarding actions. 473 dead, 891 wounded. Material losses include... "We're aware of the costs, Admiral," Lasky interrupted, his voice tight. "What we need to discuss is why those Chaos vessels were here in the first place. They came through the same rupture that brought us. Were they following us?" Thessaly leaned forward, her augmetic eye clicking through various filters as she studied the UNSC officers. "Yes and no. The Chaos forces were drawn by the unique energy signature of your arrival. Slip space transition energy is alien to the warp. It creates resonances that attract demonic attention, like blood in water attracts sharks. When you tore into our reality, you essentially rang a dinner bell for every Chaos entity within 100 light years." "So, we're a beacon for demons," Palmer said flatly. "Wonderful. How do we fix that?" "You don't," Magos Theta 79 stated, his mechanical voice buzzing. "The corruption signature will fade over time, months, perhaps years. Until then, your vessel will continue to attract warp predators. This makes you a liability to any Imperial fleet operating in your vicinity." "Then we repair our slip space drive and leave," Glassman said. "You help us fix it. We jump out of your universe. Everyone wins." "Except your slip space technology may not function correctly in our reality," the Magos replied. "Your transition damaged fundamental components. My initial analysis suggests repair is possible, but activation could tear open another warp rupture. You might return to your universe. You might be scattered across time and space. You might open a permanent gate to the immaterium that consumes this entire sector. The risks are substantial." Silence fell across the room as that information sank in. Chief saw it hit Lasky. The realization that they might be trapped here permanently, that going home might be impossible or might cause a catastrophe that killed millions. "What are our options?" Lasky asked quietly. Admiral Vane's expression softened slightly, the first hint of something other than military severity Chief had seen from him. "Captain, I will be frank. Your vessel is remarkable. Your combat effectiveness exceeded all projections. Your weapon systems are devastatingly efficient. Those MAC cannons punch through Chaos armor that has resisted Imperial fire for centuries. Your soldiers are skilled, disciplined, and fought beside the Adeptus Astartes as equals. In short, you are exactly the kind of asset the Imperium desperately needs." "Here it comes," Palmer muttered. "Join us," Vane continued. "Properly, not as subordinates, but as allies with special dispensation. I can petition the High Lords of Terra for your recognition as an independent auxiliary force, something akin to the Adeptus Astartes or the Adeptus Mechanicus. You would maintain operational autonomy, your own command structure, your own protocols. In exchange, you fight alongside Imperial forces against Chaos, Xenos, and other threats." "And our AI systems?" Lasky asked. "Our technology that you consider heretical?" "Would be tolerated," Thessaly said, clearly uncomfortable with the word. "Under strict supervision and sealed by inquisitorial decree. No one outside your crew would be permitted access to your AI systems. You would be granted dispensation as a relic force from the dark age of technology, operating under ancient provisions that predate current Imperial law. It's unprecedented, but not impossible." Chief noticed the careful phrasing. Not accepted, not approved, tolerated, like a disease kept in quarantine, useful but dangerous. What happens if we refuse? He asked. Thessaly's organic eye met his, and he saw genuine regret there. Then you are Xenos collaborators operating heretical technology. Admiral Vane would be forced to demand your surrender. Your ship would be impounded, your technology seized, your personnel interrogated for signs of corruption. Those found pure would be pressed into Imperial service. Those found tainted would be executed. Your AI systems would be destroyed. And the Infinity itself would be either converted to proper Imperial standards or dismantled for study. So join you or die, Palmer said. Same offer as before, just dressed up prettier. Not quite, Artemis interjected. Before, you were unknown. Now, you have proven yourselves in battle. You have fought Chaos Marines and survived. You have saved lives at great risk. Foolish, perhaps, but admirable. You have earned a degree of respect. The offer now comes with genuine autonomy rather than subjugation. It is more than most receive. Lasky looked at his senior staff, reading their expressions. Palmer was skeptical, but pragmatic. Glassman looked torn between curiosity about Imperial technology and horror at their methods. Chief remained unreadable, as always, but Lasky knew him well enough to understand the Spartans' concerns. We need to discuss this privately, Lasky said. Can you give us 1 hour? 1 hour, Vane agreed. But understand, Captain, the strategic situation is deteriorating. That Chaos vessel that escaped will report your presence. More will come. Larger forces. If you refuse Imperial protection, you will face those forces alone. Your vessel is impressive, but it is one ship. Chaos can field fleets of hundreds. The choice is stark. Join us and live, or stand alone and die. There is no third option in this universe. The hololith deactivated. Thessaly and her delegation departed, leaving the UNSC officers alone in the briefing room. For a long moment, nobody spoke. They all knew what was at stake. Finally, Lasky broke the silence. Roland, give us your analysis. Brutally honest. The AI's avatar materialized, looking more strained than Chief had ever seen him. Captain, I've been running probability models since the battle ended. Our chances of surviving independently in this universe are approximately 3%. That accounts for resource depletion, inability to repair without proper facilities, and the inevitable attraction of hostile forces. If we join the Imperium, survival probability jumps to 78%. But he paused, his avatar flickering. That survival comes at a cost. We'd be fighting their wars, operating under their protocols, slowly becoming more like them. Within a decade, I calculate an 85% chance that we would be indistinguishable from Imperial forces in methods, if not in name. So we either die as ourselves or survive as something else. Palmer summarized. Those are terrible options. There might be a third path, Chief said quietly. Everyone turned to him. The Tau. Thessaly mentioned them during her initial interrogation. She said they preach a greater good philosophy. That sounds like they might be more compatible with UNSC values than the Imperium. What if we tried to make contact with them instead? Glassman pulled up data on the Tau from Imperial records they'd been given. According to this, the Tau Empire is a Xenos civilization located in the Ultima Segmentum. They're expansionist but relatively rational compared to most factions in this universe. They accept alien species into their empire. They use advanced technology without religious restrictions. He stopped, reading further. They're considered one of the Imperium's major enemies. Making contact with them would be seen as treason. Everything's considered treason in this universe. Palmer pointed out. But the kid gloves makes a good point. If we're going to ally with anyone, maybe it should be with a faction that doesn't lobotomize criminals and worship a corpse. The Imperium would never allow it, Lasky said. We're surrounded by their fleet. We can't reach Tau's space without fighting our way through Imperial blockades. Not immediately, Chief agreed. But if we accept the Imperial offer with the autonomy they're promising, we'd eventually be deployed to various sectors, including potentially Tau borders. We play along, prove ourselves valuable, earn trust. Then, when we're in position, we make contact with the Tau and see if they offer a better alternative. That's incredibly risky, Glassman said. If the Imperials discover we're negotiating with their enemies, they'd declare us traitors and destroy us, Lasky finished. Yes, but Roland, what are our odds if we try that approach? The AI calculated for several seconds. Uncertain. Too many variables. But I'd estimate 20 to 30% chance of successful defection to Tau space, assuming we could maintain operational security and the Tau proved receptive. It's better than 3% independent survival. Worse than 78% Imperial service. There's another consideration, Chief added. Information. Right now, we know almost nothing about this universe. Its factions, its threats, its opportunities. If we join the Imperium temporarily, we gain access to their intelligence networks, their star charts, their strategic assessments. Even if we eventually leave, that knowledge is invaluable. Lasky rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of 17,000 lives pressing down on his shoulders. Every decision here was a gamble. Every path led through darkness. All right, he said finally. Here's what we do. We accept the Imperial offer with full autonomy. We fight alongside them, learn from them, gather intelligence. We prove ourselves valuable enough that they can't afford to lose us. And we keep our options open. If we find a way home, we take it. If we find a better ally, we pursue it. And if neither of those options materialize, we cross that bridge when we come to it. But we survive. We adapt. And we never, never forget who we are and what we stand for. Are we agreed? No, Palmer said bluntly. But I don't have a better plan, so I'm in. The technology exchange alone might be worth the risk, Glassman admitted. And if we can access Mechanicus facilities, we might actually be able to repair the slipspace drive properly. I'm in. Roland? Lasky asked. I am an AI, Roland replied quietly. In this universe, that makes me a demon. An abomination. Something to be destroyed on sight. The fact that you're all willing to risk your lives and futures to protect my existence. I'm in, Captain. Whatever it takes. Everyone looked at Chief. The Spartan stood silently for a moment, his helmeted head turned toward the viewport where the Imperial Fleet hung in space like cathedrals of war. I've spent 30 years fighting to protect humanity, Chief said finally. That doesn't change just because we're in a different universe. If the Imperium is humanity's last defense against extinction, then we help them. But we do it our way. We don't become them. We show them there's another way to fight, one that doesn't require grinding your own people into dust. Maybe we fail. Maybe we die trying. But at least we'll die as UNSC, not as Imperial subjects who forgot what we stood for. Inspiring speech, Palmer said dryly. Now let's hope we live long enough to see if it matters. Lasky stood, straightening his uniform. All right. Let's go tell the Imperials they've got themselves some allies. God help us all. 1 hour later, Captain Lasky stood before Admiral Vane's hololith and Inquisitor Thessaly, with his senior staff arrayed behind him. The moment felt momentous, a turning point that would define the Infinity's future, and possibly the fate of everyone aboard. "Admiral Vane, Inquisitor Thessaly," Lasky began formally. "The UNSC Infinity accepts your offer of alliance. We will fight alongside Imperial forces against chaos and other threats. In exchange, we require full operational autonomy, protection for our technology and personnel, and recognition as an independent auxiliary force. These terms are non-negotiable." Vine studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Acceptable. I will petition the High Lords for formal recognition. Until then, you operate under my authority as Admiral of this fleet. Your first deployment." He pulled up a star chart showing a region of space highlighted in red. "The Orpheus sector has been under increasing orc attacks. A Wa is forming. Estimates suggest 3 billion orcs are gathering for a major assault on Imperial worlds. You will join the defense fleet and demonstrate your vessel's combat capabilities against a Xenos threat. Prove yourselves there, and the High Lords will have no choice but to grant you the autonomy you seek." "Orcs," Palmer muttered. "The fungal warriors Artemis mentioned. 3 billion of them. This should be fun." "One more thing," Thessaly added. "I will be assigning a small contingent to remain aboard the Infinity, officially to serve as liaisons and cultural advisors. Unofficially, to ensure your AI systems remain contained and your crew doesn't fall to chaos corruption. You will tolerate their presence. They will tolerate yours. We will learn to work together, or we will all die separately. Are we clear?" "Crystal," Lasky replied. "Then welcome to the Imperium's service," Vane said. "May the Emperor protect you, even if you do not yet believe in his divinity. You're going to need his protection. The Orpheus sector is where wars go to become nightmares. If you survive, you'll have earned every privilege you've requested. If not," he shrugged, "then the Infinity becomes another cautionary tale about humanity's hubris. Glory or death, Captain. There is no middle ground." The hololith deactivated. The briefing room fell silent, and somewhere in the distance, 3 billion orcs were gathering for war. Completely unaware that a ship from another universe was about to crash into their Wa, with the fury of humanity's better past meeting its darkest future. Master Chief checked his weapons, his ammunition, his armor systems. Another war. Another impossible fight. Another chance to prove that even in the grimdark darkness of the 41st millennium, Spartans never died. They were just missing in action, and they'd be missing in action all the way to victory or oblivion. Either way, it was going to be one hell of a fight. The Orpheus sector burned. From the command deck of the Infinity, Captain Lasky watched the tactical display with growing horror. 300 Imperial worlds, home to trillions of humans, were under siege by a Xenos threat that defied every rational principle of warfare. The orcs weren't just attacking, they were celebrating. Their ships broadcasted incomprehensible noise that the translation systems identified as laughter, war chants, and what could only be described as enthusiastic celebration of violence. "Contact report," Commander Bradley called out. "We're detecting 2,743 orc vessels in the primary battle zone. Designations ranging from escort craft to..." He paused, double-checking his readings. "Captain, I'm showing a vessel that's 40 kilometers long. That can't be right." "It's right," Admiral Vane confirmed via hololith. His fleet had rendezvoused with the Infinity 3 days ago at the edge of the Orpheus sector. "That's a rock, an asteroid that orcs have hollowed out, fitted with engines and guns, and hurled at us like a kinetic weapon. It contains approximately 10 million orcs. When it reaches a target world, it doesn't orbit. It crashes. And the survivors, and there are always survivors, pour out and begin their assault. Primitive, brutal, horrifyingly effective. Master Chief stood beside Lasky, studying the orc fleet composition. The vessels were technological nightmares, cobbled together from scrap metal, ship wreckage, and what looked like massive amounts of duct tape and prayer. None of them should have been able to fly, let alone achieve void combat capability. And yet, here they were, thousands of ships operating in loose formations that suggested either brilliant tactical flexibility or complete chaos. Probably both, Artemis commented, reading Chief's body language. The Space Marine had become a semi-permanent fixture on the Infinity's bridge, along with Inquisitor Thessaly's advisory contingent, a polite term for watchers who monitored every action the UNSC crew took. Orcs are fungal organisms that reproduce through spores. They grow larger and stronger the more they fight. Their technology functions because they believe it will function. A psychic field generated by collective belief literally makes their nonsensical weapons operational. They are the universe's cosmic joke, and the punchline is written in the blood of billions. How do you fight something like that? Lasky asked. Overwhelming firepower applied constantly until they're all dead, Artemis replied. There is no negotiation, no surrender. Orcs live for war. When they die in battle, they die happy. The only way to defeat them is extermination. Total, complete, absolute extermination. Even then, the spores they leave behind will eventually grow into new orcs unless you sterilize the entire planet with fire. Sir, we're receiving fleet-wide tactical orders, Bradley reported. Admiral Vane is splitting the Imperial forces into 3 battle groups. Group Primus will engage the rock directly. Apparently, they're going to try boarding it and detonating its reactor from inside. Group Secundus will screen the flanks against orc escorts. And Group Tertius, that's us, will punch through the center of their fleet and engage their command ship. Something called Da Eternal Wa. Lasky pulled up the target data and immediately understood why the Imperials wanted the Infinity for this mission. The Orc command ship was massive, 15 kilometers of welded scrap metal bristling with more guns than should physically fit on a single hull. It was escorted by at least 50 capital ships and hundreds of smaller craft. Breaking through to it would require sustained firepower and defensive capability far beyond what most Imperial vessels could provide. It's a test, Chief said quietly. They want to see what we can do under pressure. Of course it is, Palmer replied over the command channel. She was in the hangar bay, prepping Spartans for potential boarding actions. Question is, do we pass their test or exceed it? We exceeded, Lasky decided. If we're going to operate in this universe, we need to establish ourselves as more than just another Imperial asset. We need to show them the UNSC doesn't just fight, we win. Helm, plot and intercept course for the Orc command ship. Maximum combat speed, weapons. I want firing solutions on every enemy vessel between us and that target. Mac cannons, archer pods, point defense. Everything hot and ready. Captain, Roland interjected, his avatar appearing with unusual hesitancy. I should inform you that I've been analyzing Orc communication patterns. They're aware of us, specifically. They've been broadcasting messages about the shiny new Humi ship for the past 3 hours. I think they're excited to fight us. Excited? Glassman asked from engineering. They're excited to fight a ship that outguns them? They're orcs, Artemis explained with something that might have been respect. The bigger the challenge, the happier they are. To them, this isn't war. It's sport. They're having fun. The Infinity surged forward, its Forerunner-enhanced engines propelling the massive vessel toward the Orc fleet at speeds that made Imperial ships look sluggish by comparison. Around them, Group Tertius struggled to keep pace. 2 Imperial cruisers, 4 frigates, and a Space Marine strike cruiser from the Ultramarines chapter. The Orcs saw them coming and adjusted their formation accordingly. Which is to say, they all turned toward the Infinity and accelerated, howling with what the translation systems rendered as joy. Multiple targeting locks, Bradley reported. Estimate 300 weapon systems aimed at us. That's actually fewer than I expected. That's because Orcs are terrible shots. Titus called from his position near the bridge entrance. They believe their weapons will hit eventually, so they fire wildly and rely on volume over accuracy. However, with 300 weapon systems, volume becomes accuracy through sheer probability. Brace for incoming. The void lit up with weapons fire. Massive shells the size of buildings arced through space. Energy beams that were more controlled explosions than coherent light slashed across the darkness. Missiles that trailed smoke and flame and occasionally changed direction mid-flight for no apparent reason streaked toward the fleet. The Infinity's point defense systems activated automatically. Automated turrets tracked, calculated, and fired with inhuman precision. Archer missiles were intercepted. Energy beams were absorbed by shields. Solid projectiles were destroyed before impact. The ship's defensive network, enhanced by Roland's tactical coordination, created a bubble of protection that nothing penetrated. For about 30 seconds. Then something huge. A missile the size of a Pelican dropship, painted bright red and covered in Orc glyphs that probably said something like, boom. Punched through the point defense network through sheer mass and stubborn refusal to explode when hit by interceptor fire. It impacted the Infinity's forward shields with force that would have shattered a lesser vessel. The shields held, but barely. Warning klaxons screamed. Energy reserves dropped 15% from a single hit. What the hell was that? Lasky demanded. That, Artemis said with grim appreciation, was Orc ingenuity. They painted it red because they believe red makes things go faster. And in their psychic reality distortion field, it did go faster. Fast enough to overwhelm your defensive calculations. Welcome to fighting Orcs, Captain. Logic is optional. Belief is power. Then we adapt, Lasky said. Roland, update point defense algorithms to account for Orc belief-based velocity increases. Assume incoming projectiles are 20% faster than they should be. Adjusting, Roland confirmed. But Captain, this is insane. Their technology shouldn't work. By every physical principle I know, those ships should be falling apart. But they're not. They're functioning because the Orcs think they will function. How do you fight an enemy whose weapons work on faith? The same way the Imperials do, Chief said. You shoot them until they stop believing. The Infinity closed to optimal firing range. Lasky gave the order every captain dreams of giving and hopes never to need. All weapons fire at will. The Mac cannon spoke first. 4 simultaneous shots that crossed the distance to the Orc fleet in seconds. Each 600-ton slug hit with the force of a tactical nuclear weapon. The first shot struck an Orc cruiser amidships, the kinetic energy transmission literally breaking the vessel in half. The second hit a cluster of escorts, the hypervelocity impact creating a debris field that destroyed 3 additional ships through secondary collisions. The third and fourth shots converged on a battleship that looked like someone had welded 50 smaller ships together and hoped for the best. The battleship exploded. Not gradually, not with the measured violence of reactor failure. It exploded like a firework, scattering debris across a 300-kilometer radius and taking out a dozen nearby vessels in the process. Orc reactors are volatile, Artemis observed. They run on principles that would make a Mechanicus priest weep. But they're effective, destructively effective. The Archer missile pods added their contribution, hundreds of missiles streaking toward Orc formations, overwhelming their minimal point defense through sheer numbers. Explosions blossomed across the enemy fleet. Ships listed, burning. Others simply ceased to exist, reduced to expanding clouds of atomized metal and Orc spores. Orc fleet reforming, Bradley reported. They're not retreating. They're charging, all of them. Every ship in range is breaking formation and heading straight for us. Of course they are, Palmer muttered. Because running away would make too much sense. The battle became a maelstrom. The Infinity moved through the Orc fleet like a knife through tissue, its weapons cutting swaths of destruction, while its shields absorbed punishment that would have destroyed any other vessel. Around it, Imperial ships fought with the desperation of soldiers who'd seen this scenario 1,000 times and knew how thin the margin between victory and annihilation could be. Chief watched it all from the bridge, his tactical mind cataloging enemy capabilities, identifying patterns, searching for the critical weaknesses that every enemy possessed. And he found it. The Orc command ship, Da Eternal Wag, wasn't just the largest vessel. It was the keystone. Orc formations, such as they were, oriented around it. When it moved, they moved. When it fired, they fired. Not through coordination or command authority, but through simple imitation. The Orcs followed their biggest, strongest leader because that's what Orcs did. Captain, Chief said quietly, if we take out that command ship, the fleet loses cohesion. They'll turn on each other, fighting to establish who's in charge. We could rout them without destroying every vessel. That's remarkably sophisticated thinking for fungal berserkers, Lasky observed. It's not sophisticated, Artemis corrected. It's instinct. Orcs follow the biggest, strongest leader. Kill him, and every Orc thinks he might be the new biggest, strongest leader. They fight each other to prove it. But Captain, that command ship has a crew of approximately 50,000 Orcs. And somewhere inside it is the War Boss, the largest and most dangerous Orc in the entire WoW. You would need to board it, fight through 50,000 enemies, and kill their leader in personal combat. No Orc respects death from a distance. The War Boss must die in battle, face to face, or the Orcs won't accept his defeat. Chief checked his MA5D's ammunition counter, his armor's shield status, his combat knife's edge. Then that's what we do. Palmer's voice came through immediately. Chief, you are not seriously suggesting we board an Orc capital ship with 50,000 hostiles aboard? Not just me, Chief replied. Full Spartan deployment. Supported by Artemis and his Space Marines. We hit them fast, hit them hard, reach the War Boss, and take him down. Game over. That's suicide, Palmer said flatly. No, Artemis interjected. That's Astartes' doctrine. And if your Spartans are truly the equals of Space Marines, you'll survive. Probably. The Ultramarines will support this action. We have experience with Orc command ship assaults. They're brutal, bloody, and the survival rate is approximately 60%. But they work. 60%. Lasky repeated. You're asking me to send my best soldiers on a mission with a 40% fatality rate. I'm asking you to win this battle with minimal casualties across the fleet, Chief corrected. If we grind through the Orc fleet ship by ship, we'll lose dozens of Imperial vessels and thousands of crew. But if we decapitate their command structure now, we save those lives. The math is brutal, but it's clear. Lasky was quiet for a long moment, and Chief could see the captain wrestling with the same calculations the Imperium made every day. Sacrifice the few to save the many. Accept casualties to achieve victory. Treat soldiers as resources to be expended in pursuit of strategic objectives. It was the logic Chief had criticized, the philosophy he'd rejected, and now he was asking Lasky to embrace it. "Chief," Lasky said finally, "are you sure about this?" Master Chief thought about 30 years of war, about missions that should have been impossible but succeeded because someone had been willing to take the risk. About Dr. Halsey telling him that Spartans were humanity's last hope. About Cortana's final sacrifice to save him. About the fact that in this universe, in this dark millennium, nobility without pragmatism was just elaborate suicide. "No," Chief admitted, "but I'm going anyway, because that's what Spartans do. We take the impossible missions so others don't have to." "Then go," Lasky ordered. "All Spartan teams, deploy for boarding action. Artemis, your Space Marines will support. Roland, plot the optimal approach vector. Commander Bradley, give them covering fire. And Chief..." Lasky's voice softened slightly. "Come back. That's an order." "I'll do my best, sir," Chief replied. Then he was moving, sprinting toward the hangar bay, where Palmer had already assembled every Spartan aboard the Infinity. 23 enhanced soldiers, the best humanity had produced in the 26th century, about to board a ship full of the 41st millennium's most dangerous Xenos warriors. As he ran, Chief activated his helmet's communication suite and spoke to the Spartan teams. "Listen up. We're going into hell. 50,000 orcs between us and our objective. They're stronger than elites, tougher than brutes, and they feel no fear. But we're Spartans. We've faced impossible odds before. We'll face them again. We go in hard. We move fast. We complete the mission. And we all come home. Understood?" "Sir, yes, sir." 23 voices answered as one. In the hangar bay, Artemis stood with 10 of his Ultramarines, warriors who'd fought for centuries and survived battles that would have broken entire armies. They nodded to the Spartans with something like respect. "Today," Artemis announced, "the sons of Gilliman fight beside the warriors of a forgotten age. Let our enemies know fear. Let them know death. For the Emperor and for humanity." "For humanity," Chief echoed, though he left off the Emperor part. The boarding craft launched, Pelicans and Imperial Thunderhawks screaming toward the Orc command ship through a storm of weapons fire. The Infinity's guns carved a path through the enemy fleet. Roland coordinated point defense to protect the boarding craft. And somewhere ahead, a war boss waited, ignorant of the fact that his death had just been scheduled. Master Chief checked his weapons one final time. In his mind, he held the image of the 73 people he'd saved from chaos corruption. The reminder that individual lives mattered, that people weren't numbers. But today, he was going to kill a lot of people. Xenos, yes. Orcs, yes. But still people, in the loosest sense of the word. He was going to wade through blood and violence to accomplish a mission that would define whether the UNSC Infinity lived or died in this dark universe. He was going to become the very thing he'd criticized. A soldier making brutal calculations, accepting casualties, sacrificing principles for survival. But he was going to save the fleet. He was going to prove the Spartans belonged in the 41st millennium. And maybe just maybe, he'd find a way to do it without losing himself in the process. The boarding craft breached the Orc command ship's hull with a screech of tearing metal. The hatches blew open, and Master Chief led his Spartans into the darkness, ready to teach the 41st millennium that even in a universe of eternal war, some warriors still fought for something beyond survival. They fought for hope. Even if hope seemed like a fantasy in the grim darkness of the far future, the war boss fell with a roar that shook the entire ship. Master Chief stood over the massive corpse, his armor cracked and scored, his shields depleted, every muscle screaming with exhaustion. Around him, the Orc command deck was a charnel house. Bodies piled 3 deep, the walls painted with blood, both red and green. Spartans and Space Marines alike bore wounds that would have killed normal humans, but they stood victorious. The war boss had been 9 feet of pure muscle and fury, wielding a power claw that could tear through tank armor. It had taken Chief, Palmer, Artemis, and 4 other Spartans fighting in perfect coordination to bring the beast down. Even then, it had laughed as it died, laughed at the joy of a good fight finally found. "It's done," Chief reported over comms, his voice hoarse. "Target eliminated." Through the Orc ship's viewports, they watched the enemy fleet's reaction. Without their war boss's psychic presence holding them together, the Orcs immediately turned on each other. Ships opened fire on former allies. Boarding actions erupted between vessels arguing over who was now in charge. The organized assault dissolved into chaotic infighting. Fleet-wide victory confirmed. Admiral Vane's voice came through, carrying a note of genuine respect. "The Orc Wa is broken. Imperial forces are mopping up the scattered remnants. Captain Lasky, your boarding action was exceptional, reckless, suicidal, and completely successful. The Imperium could use more commanders willing to take such risks." Back aboard the Infinity, the Spartans returned to a ship that bore the scars of the largest battle the UNSC had fought since the Human Covenant War. Casualty reports showed 93 dead, 217 wounded, but the fleet had survived. The sector had been saved, and the UNSC had proven it could fight and win in the 41st millennium. Captain Lasky stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display as Imperial ships began securing the battlefield. Beside him, Inquisitor Thessaly reviewed combat logs with something that might have been approval. "Your performance exceeded all projections," she said. "Admiral Vane will submit his report to the High Lords. I expect your auxiliary status will be approved within 6 months. Until then, you operate under Imperial protection and authority. Consider this your trial period successfully completed. At the cost of 93 lives," Lasky replied quietly. "A bargain," Thessaly said, and she meant it. "Most Imperial operations of this scale lose tens of thousands. Your casualties were minimal by our standards. You should celebrate, Captain. You've earned the Imperium's respect, and that is a rare commodity." Lasky didn't feel like celebrating. He felt like a man who'd crossed a line he'd sworn never to cross. He'd sent soldiers on a suicide mission. He'd accepted casualties as necessary. He'd made the brutal calculations that defined Imperial warfare. He'd survived. His ship had survived. But something else had died in the process. Some measure of innocence, some belief that the UNSC could operate in this universe without becoming part of its darkness. In the Infinity's observation deck, Master Chief found himself once again standing beside Brother Sergeant Artemis, watching the stars. The Space Marine's armor bore fresh scars from the boarding action, and Chief noticed several new purity seals had been added. Honors for valor in the face of overwhelming odds. "You fought well," Artemis said, better than well. You fought like Astartes, like warriors who understand that survival requires sacrifice. Don't, Chief replied quietly. Don't tell me I did the right thing. 93 people died today because I led them into a meat grinder. 93 people who trusted me to bring them home. 93 people died so that hundreds of thousands could live, Artemis corrected. If you had not taken that action, the battle would have cost far more. You made the hard choice. The necessary choice. You are learning what it means to command in this millennium. I'm learning what it means to become you, Chief said. To stop seeing people as individuals and start seeing them as resources. Numbers on a casualty report. Acceptable losses. Artemis was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that 3.5 centuries of war had accumulated. Do you remember earlier, when you asked if I could live with abandoning people? I said I had done worse. Do you want to know what I meant? Chief nodded. 200 years ago, I commanded a company during the defense of Kalth's moon. We were besieged by word-bearers, traitors space marines who worshipped chaos. They had overrun our positions, and we were falling back to a final defensive line. 500 Imperial guardsmen were trapped behind enemy lines. They called for extraction. They called for help. Artemis's voice became hollow. I had the resources to save perhaps half of them, but that would have left my own lines weakened. So I calculated. I weighed 500 lives against 5,000, and I gave the order to abandon them, to seal the bunkers they were sheltering in and bury them alive rather than let chaos corrupt them. Chief felt cold despite his armor's temperature regulation. I listened to them die, Artemis continued. For 6 hours, I listened to their screams over the Vox as they suffocated in darkness. 500 souls damned because I made a calculation. And do you know what haunts me most? It was the right decision. My line held. 5,000 lived. The word-bearers were pushed back. The planet was saved. By every tactical and strategic measure, I made the correct choice. But you still hear them, Chief said softly. Every day, Artemis confirmed. Every day for 200 years. Their names are inscribed in my memories. Their faces haunt my meditation. And I carry that weight because it is the price of command. The price of survival. The price of living in a universe where there are no good choices, only less terrible ones. He turned to face Chief directly. You saved 73 people from chaos corruption. You accepted 93 casualties to break the Orc Wa. These choices will haunt you. They should haunt you. The moment they stop haunting you is the moment you have truly become what you fear. A commander who sees people as numbers. But as long as you carry that weight, as long as you remember their names and faces, you remain human. Broken, perhaps. Scarred, certainly. But human. Chief thought about the 93 casualties. About Corporal James Mackenzie, who'd taken a power claw to the chest protecting his fire team. About Lieutenant Sarah Zhao, who'd held a corridor against 20 orcs so others could retreat. About every name on the casualty list that represented a person, not a statistic. I don't know if I can keep doing this, Chief admitted. Making these choices, living with these costs. You will, Artemis said with certainty. Because the alternative is giving up. And Spartans, like Astartes, do not give up. We endure. We adapt. We carry impossible weight so others don't have to. It is our curse and our purpose. That's a bleak philosophy. This is a bleak universe, Artemis replied. But perhaps having you here reminds us that it doesn't have to be only bleak. You saved those 73 when we would have abandoned them. You questioned our methods when we had stopped questioning anything. You showed us that there is still nobility in this dark age, even if nobility comes at a cost. He paused. My sister's name was Julia. I have not spoken it in 2 centuries. But you made me remember that she was a person, not just a casualty. Thank you for that, Spartan. Chief nodded, unable to find words adequate to the moment. Days later, the UNSC Infinity departed the Orpheus sector under Imperial escort, bound for a shipyard where Mechanicus priests would begin the long process of attempting to repair the slipspace drive. The ship bore scars inside and out. Hull damage, system failures, wounded crew, and the psychological weight of soldiers who'd learned that surviving in the 41st millennium meant embracing its brutal logic. Captain Lasky addressed the crew over ship-wide comms, his voice steady despite the exhaustion beneath it. This wasn't the mission we signed up for. We came out here to explore, to defend, to make the galaxy better. Instead, we've found ourselves in a universe where better is a luxury and survival is an accomplishment. We've lost good people. We've made hard choices. We've done things that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. But we've survived. We've proven that the UNSC, that humanity from our time, can stand alongside the warriors of this era and not just endure, but excel. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. I won't lie to you. The road ahead is dark. We don't know if we can ever go home. We don't know if the slipspace drive can be repaired. We don't know what horrors this universe will throw at us next. But I know this. We are UNSC. We are soldiers, scientists, engineers, and explorers who believe in something better than mere survival. And as long as we hold on to that, as long as we remember why we fight, we haven't lost ourselves in this darkness. We carry a light from a better time. And maybe, just maybe, that light can illuminate even the grimdark future. In the engineering bay, Dr. Glassman worked alongside Mechanicus priests, learning their rituals while teaching them actual science, finding unexpected common ground between faith and knowledge. In the medical bay, Dr. Chen treated wounded with techniques that amazed Imperial chirurgeons, showing them that compassion and efficiency weren't mutually exclusive. In the barracks, Spartans and Space Marines shared stories of battles fought, comparing tactics and philosophy, learning from each other despite their vast differences. And on the bridge, Master Chief stood watch, as he had for 30 years, protecting humanity from threats it couldn't face alone. The threats were different now. Demons instead of flood, orcs instead of covenant, chaos instead of forerunners. But the mission remained the same. Survive, adapt, protect, never give up, never surrender, never forget that every casualty was a person, every statistic was someone's family, every number on a report had been someone with dreams and hopes and a right to be remembered. It was a harder path than the Imperium's pragmatism. It was more painful than accepting that some people were simply expendable. But it was the path the UNSC had chosen, and Chief would walk it until the end, wherever that end might be. Through the viewport, the stars of the 41st millennium burned with cold, distant light. Somewhere out there were the Tau, potential allies who might offer an alternative to Imperial service. Somewhere were other threats the Infinity hadn't encountered yet. And somewhere, buried in the wreckage of their damaged slip-space drive, was maybe, just maybe, a way home. But for now, the UNSC Infinity sailed through the dark, carrying with it a reminder of what humanity had once been and might be again. A ship from the past, lost in a terrible future, fighting to prove that even in the grim darkness of the far future, there could still be hope. Even if that hope cost everything to maintain. Even if maintaining it meant becoming something darker than they'd ever intended. Even if hope was the most precious and dangerous thing in a universe that had forgotten what it meant to dream of something better than survival. The Infinity sailed on. Its crew endured. And Master Chief kept his vigil, watching the stars and carrying the weight of 93 names he would never forget. In the 41st millennium, there was only war. But now there were also Spartans. And Spartans never died. They were just missing in action, fighting battles in the darkness, holding the line against impossible odds. For humanity. For hope. For the belief that survival alone wasn't enough, even if the universe disagreed. Verse